A twisted little game. Jorge never saw it coming, but she knew just the same. In the darkness of the night, with a smile so sly, she whispered, "Let's play a game," and he didn't ask why. She zipped him up tight in the suitcase of love. No air, no light, just the stars above. He thought it was a joke, just a lover's embrace. Sarah, he cried in that tight, dark space. Jorge was laughing, but his breath was thin. The walls were closing in as the fear kicked in. He called out a name, but it echoed in vain, while Sarah watched coldly, not a hint of pain. She zipped him up tight in the suitcase of love. No air, no light, just the stars above. He thought it was a joke, just a lover's embrace. Sarah, he cried in that tight, dark space. Love's a game of risk, a dangerous thing. In the suitcase of love, it's a deadly flame. Sarah's smile fades as the silence grows. In the suitcase of love, nobody knows. Morning came with silence, no breath to be found. Sarah unzipped the case, Jorge's last sound. She stared at the scene. What had she done? In the suitcase of love, there's no place to run. She zipped him up tight in the suitcase of love. No air, no light, just the stars above. He thought it was a joke, just a lover's embrace. Sarah, he cried in that tight, dark space. Love's a game of risk, a dangerous thing. In the suitcase of love, it's a deadly flame. Sarah's smile fades as the silence grows. In the suitcase of love, nobody knows. Love's a game of risk, a dangerous thing. In the suitcase of love, it's a deadly fling. Sarah's smile fades as the silence grows. In the suitcase of love, nobody knows.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, everybody. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whoever you're doing it with. Welcome here to Legal Vices, the channel where law meets life, and we dissect the cases that are gripping the world, from the high-profile cases that dominate the headlines to those little hidden gems that you might never have heard of. I'm here to break them all down for you in ways that engage, enlighten, and occasionally are a bit irreverent and hopefully somewhat entertaining. Whether it's the headline-breaking stories that everybody is being captivated with across the courtrooms of the United States, or shocking criminal trials, the legal battles that shape our everyday lives, or anything else that comes our way, we break down the facts, the legal twists, the shocking developments, the courtroom drama of all the criminal trials and civil trials that come our way. And not to mention the jaw-dropping moments that could happen at any time. We're ready to dive deep into that world, deep into the world of justice and crime and what have you not. It's going to be a wild ride for day 2 of the Sarah Boone trial. So buckle up, hit that subscription button, hit that like button, because we are your front row seat to the most gripping trial currently going on anywhere. And I'm glad you're watching it here with me. And as I mentioned, today is day 2 of the Sarah Boone trial. We got to see who's going to show up today. I don't know who they're going to be calling. They had their opening statements last time. They had George's brother. They had Sarah's ex. They had forensics lady. They had the officer that appeared on scene, and they just pretty much all gave straightforward testimony. We didn't get to hear a lot of the opening statements because the audio on Law and Crime sucked. It was horrible. And the first thing the guy said is, "It's all right." When he went up to give his opening statements, is like, "Good morning," and then he stepped away from the microphone, and we basically didn't hear anything the prosecutor had to say, and very little of what the defense lawyer had to say. So we'll probably be watching bits and pieces of the opening statements during the breaks in trial today. Let's see what else we got to talk about. One very important thing we got to talk about. You guys are so freaking awesome. Today is day 38 of the Emotional Support Potato Pig Dog Cam. We have hit the goal and unlocked the Emotional Support Potato Pig Dog Cams 38 days in a row. Will today be 39? It's entirely up to you. Will we keep the streak alive? And will we unleash the Emotional Support Potato Pig Dog Cam yet again for the 39th straight day in a row? As I said, it's totally 100% dependent upon all of you. Each and every one of you has a say in it. So there you go. It's day 39. We don't grift for super chats. We don't beg. We don't do any of that stuff. But what we do is we reward. We provide you with some would say I'm holding my dogs behind a paywall. No, I'm just rewarding you with the Emotional Support Potato Pig Dog Cams as a thanks for your support for me. Sorry, that's day 38. We'll see what happens. I don't have a like and subscribe poll set up yet. We'll do that once actual trial gets underway. But we do have our bingo card, people. We got a couple of things. And again, let me put up a banner here so people coming in wondering what the hell's going on. What I think we should do is let's show what's going on Court TV right now, so people are aware. Where's the Court TV sign? Here it is, the Court TV, right there. Share. Let's do this. We don't want to do that. We want to put it down smaller. There we go. Let me put up a quick little banner here. It says we are waiting for day 2. Waiting. Create a banner. Waiting for day 2 of the Sarah Boone trial to start. There we go. And scroll across the bottom, add banner, and click. There we go. Cool dudes. It's scheduled to go live in about 18 minutes and 23 seconds. We'll be keeping an eye on it. Make sure we don't miss an exciting moment of the trial. But we do, as I said, we have our bingo card lined up in Rumble and here on YouTube. If you just look at the top of the chat, there is a pinned chat that says, "Get your Boone's Big Bad Bingo Bonanza card here." Click on the link, click Generate Card, and that should bring up your bingo card. That's the link to your bingo card, people. And if you just click Generate, then we will. Well, let's go through this together. Where's my bingo card? All right. So right after I put up the Law and Crime thing, we'll take that down and put up the bingo card. Where's the bingo card? There we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Boone's Big Bad Bingo Bonanza card is right here. Let's make it a little bigger for you. Let's make me a little bigger. There we go. These are the things. When this, it seems a bit irreverent. It seems a bit childish, perhaps, but it's fun. It's witty. It's a good thing, and also it serves the purpose of helping you focus on trial, helping me focus on the trial, to be listening for things, to be paying attention and seeing what happens there. And there's a few little ambient things that happen around us that are also included in the bingo card. Yeah, I know. I still don't have any. Bex, I know. Bex just pointed out there's still no suitcase mention on the bingo card. I didn't have time to write up a new one today. I forgot about it until today, and then when I remembered, I didn't have time. Hopefully tomorrow it will be revised to include a suitcase mention. But here's what's going to happen. Anytime you see any one of these words, any one of these things happen, any of these words said, any of these events, click it off on your bingo card. And when you get a bingo, just let us know in chat and I'll go, yay, you got a bingo. Then see if you can get 2 bingos. Let's see if we can get the whole blackout. It's entirely just for fun, but it also helps you pay attention. The things on the bingo card, if anybody mentions the murder not being intentional, if there's court technical difficulties, we hear the term shh. If the judge shows emotion, if the judge calls for a sidebar, if the lawyer calls for a sidebar, if Sarah shows any emotion. Vices, that's me, boomers something. Oh, that may as well be the free space because that's going to happen at some point. Any mention of wine, hide and seek, the baseball bat, defense attacking the credibility of one of the witnesses, cross-examnesia. Cross-examnesia is that terrible condition where a witness is absolutely just laser focused and spot on in all of their direct testimony. But then when they're subjected to cross-examination, they forget everything. They can't remember their name. They can't remember what they were doing. They don't know. They don't remember. That's the terrible condition known as cross-examnesia. If we see signs of cross-examnesia in any of these witnesses, we'll mark that off. One of the lawyers overacting. If there's lawyers are confused, these lawyers sometimes look a little bit confused. Prosecutor gets frustrated. Dog snores. I pretty much guarantee you'll hear dog snores at some point. You may not see them unless we unlock day 39 of the emotional support potato pig dogs, but you'll definitely hear them. What else we got here? A viral moment. If there's something happens that is like a gotcha moment or a huge surprise or something that's likely to go viral. If we hear the phrase "what if any," or "who if any," or "where if any," or "how if any," that lawyerly crutch phrase that we often way over here in trials. And Sarah McLachlan. We've named the clock Sarah McLachlan. When they show the clock, that sort of seems to be the static image that Law and Crime has chosen. When they show the clock, we just mark off Sarah McLachlan. This all started during the Karen Reed trial when we named the ceiling fan they were always showing. We named it Ceiling Dion. So we just kept that streak alive. It's the Boone's Day clock named Sarah McLachlan. If the defense interrupts or ignores the judge, which happens surprisingly often in this case, if we hear about how Sarah is the victim, and if we unleash the doggo cam, and if somebody, including myself, drops an F-bomb, we get to mark that off. So that's the bingo card for today. It's linked at the top of chat. Link it, generate it, and play along with us at home. Let's see who gets the bingos. And let's put the Law and Crime back up so we don't miss it when it goes live. Present. Share screen. Sarah. All right, let me move my bingo card out of my way. Oh. Well, hang on. Let me call the dogs. Hell. All right, everybody, we are off to the races. We don't even have to go anywhere because right out of the gate. Right out of the gate, Sonia Chris has dumped 20 Legal Vices memberships. If any of you are the people that are getting one of these gifted Legal Vices memberships right now, you should give Sonia Chris a super special thanks for 2 reasons. One reason is that he's an absolute goat and is a huge OG supporter of the channel, and he's dropped memberships today like they're going out of style. That's one reason. So if you got one of those, give him a super special thanks. And another reason to be thankful for Sonia Chris is, of course, 20 Legal Vices memberships equates to 100 smackaroos, which leads us right out of the gate. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to announce that we are no longer 38 days into the emotional support potato pig dog cam. We are now 39 days into the emotional support potato pig dog cam because the superstar, the super stud, Sonia Chris has got us to that point of the day, which we call
Release the hose.
And right out of the gate, we get introduced to our sidekicks of the day, which is Strawberry. So that's Strawberry, and Yoda is over here. I don't know if the camera yet. There's Yoda. He's directly under the camera. So that's our emotional support potato pig dogs. Thank you to Sonia Chris. You get a huge foghorn. Thank you for the support and unlocking the doggos before we even get started today. Thank you so very, very much for that. You guys rock. 39 days we had emotional support potato pig dogs unleashed. And stingy with the $2, Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo. There it had done negative. That wasn't me or on court, and you spelled it out that way. But thank you so much for the effort. That's what we appreciate the effort. All right, everybody, we got to get this thing underway here. There's been a million chats that I've just let scroll on by, but Adara the Wholesome is for $5. Says might get suspended or fired today at work. Oh, holy crap. I hope not. That would suck. I really, really hope that doesn't happen. Whatever it was, goes smoothly, cleanly, and works itself out. At least I have emotional support, Pig Dogs and Boone clan to help get me through the day. Yoda for Prez. Yoda can't be president. Not only is Yoda not 35 years old, he is not a natural born citizen of the United States. He's a Korean English bulldog. Okay, people. Speaking of Boontang, we are the Boontang posse. What we've got here is, for those of you that are unfamiliar with what's going on, we got 535 people here and 211 likes. Keep those likes coming. We'll set up the like and subscribe poll, like I said, after the trial gets going. We've got let's do this. There we go. Back to the way it was. We have the official cocktail of the Sarah Boone trial. The official that's funny, David. The official cocktail of the Sarah Boone trial is, of course, vodka and Tang, which we affectionately call the Boone Tang suitcase. Get yourself a Boone Tang suitcase and play along at home if it's that time of day. If it's early morning and you got nothing else better to do, just pretend it's a mimosa. Otherwise, too bad for you. All right. Speaking of refreshments and whatnot, not only do we have the Boone Tang suitcase cocktail, the official cocktail of the Sarah Boone trial, we have the forbidden snack tray. Sarah has mentioned that she has a fan in Korea. There's a fan in Korea that sent her email, which I swear to God was not me. There was a lot of speculation going around the tubes that it was me. I guarantee you it was not me. But she, if you recall, or maybe you're not aware, I think it was 2 days before the trial, the day before the trial. Anyway, it was she made the motion earlier, but it was ruled upon the day before the trial. She wanted snacks. She asked for snacks. I guess it was ruled on the morning of the. Anyway, it doesn't matter. All the days are meshing together. This delay has really messed up my brain. But she wanted a couple of bag of chips, some mints, cookies, some candies, and juice boxes or something like that. So that she wanted the state to pay for them, and she wanted them provided. She wanted them provided there at the table so she could nosh on some snacks while she's being tried for murder and possibly facing a life sentence. Because, hey, what makes you hungrier than the possibility of spending the rest of your life behind bars? But I will tell you, that woman has the palate of an 8-year-old. I tried the Sarah Boone prohibited snack tray, the forbidden snack tray, last Friday for day one, and it made me ill. It made me ill. So we've scaled it back a little bit today. Today's Sarah Boone forbidden snack tray. We have gummy worms. We've got a few gummy worms here, and like I said, because she says she has a fan in Korea, I thought we'd give her some Korean forbidden snacks. These are what are known as salted squid balls. It's not as frightening as this sounds. Salted squid balls are. They have a picture of a squid on them, and they have like peanuts inside, and they're salted on the outside. We have some shrimp flavored chips or crackers, I guess. I don't know what you call them. We have some pepero sticks, which is a chocolate dipped over like a little breadstick. We got a chocolate cookie, not an entire bag of Oreos, and something you probably, hopefully only find in Korea: taco flavored potato chips. They're really bad. So that's our this is our Sarah Boone forbidden snack plate for today. So she can't enjoy them, but we can. Yeah. Hey Joe, yes, they are they're the Korean equivalent of Pocky. Yeah, they're pepero. Oh, look at Buddha berries slinging out. The pepero are better than Pocky. Yes, they are. They're better than the Pocky. All right, so that's what we got here. We got I almost forgot. We got juice boxes. We have the Capri Sun orangey. It even says right there in Korean, orangey across the top. If you can see it, there we go. The orangey. Yeah. So we've got the juice box, which we'll use to refresh our Boone Tang cocktail if need be. So there we go. That's what we've got locked and loaded. The cocktail, the fruit buck, and the forbidden snack tray. So join with us. This is what we do around here. We have a little bit of fun. It's a serious trial. It's a murder trial. There is a man who is a brother, a son, who will never be coming home again because of what happened that night. And the question is whether we're holding Sarah Boone accountable or not. But we do kind of find a little dark humor in this sometimes. So that's where we are. Do we have an Aussie raid? Is that what we're seeing? We're getting an Aussie sighting. Woo, woo. That's a question. We getting an Aussie sighting. I don't know. That's strawberry, and strawberry is chewing on a bone. It's a peanut butter filled bone. I'm 100% Sarah's fan from Korea. No, I am not. That is one thing that I will not even joke about. Let's move this back so we get a little more doggo in there. All right. Okay, it says we got 5 minutes to go. So the dumbest criminal ever to not take a plea deal award, would probably go to Sarah Boone. All right, and well, this judge, like, so we got 5 minutes to go here, and this judge seems to start things on time. So we'll wait. We'll just talk here for the next 5 minutes. We'll talk a little bit about what happened last time and what to expect moving forward. And then during the breaks, we'll begin watching the opening statements again. Now, big picture, here's what's going to be happening for the rest of the Sarah Boone trial. Today, we will watch day 2 live until the lunch break. We'll shut the stream down at the lunch break. And then tomorrow, we will begin an hour early. So we will begin at 9 a.m. No, I guess it would be 8 a.m. Eastern. 8 a.m. Eastern time, which would be 1 p.m. In the UK. We'll start an hour early, and we will begin watching day 2 afternoon at an accelerated speed, 1.25 at least. We'll try to see if we can get through some of the witnesses at 1.5 speed, and we'll skip through the sidebars. We'll skip through the breaks. We'll skip through lunch. And I guess they don't have lunch in the afternoon, but once we get to the end of day 2 afternoon, we will begin watching day 3 morning at the accelerated speed until we catch up live. And then we'll watch that to the lunch break, and then we'll repeat it again the next day. We'll do the same thing. So what that does is, I know people can't sit through the entire day and do nothing but watch this. So what it does is it gives people the chance that they can't watch all day, or the people that want to watch it again a little more streamlined fashion. It gives them the opportunity to come back, watch it at an accelerated speed, and skip through all the stuff that we don't need to sit around and waste time with. All right. So the witnesses, the opening statements, the part we heard, the prosecution did an acceptable opening statement. Basic, they laid the foundation for the case. Here's what we have to prove. Here's how we're going to prove it. She did this. She changes her story often. She said she did this. They had drinks. They had whatnot, and they put him in. She put him in there. Said F you. Said, and it was bland. I gave him an A minus. But I think Hayden gave him a C or something like that, C plus. He did it. He wasn't fantastic, but he did a good job. He ticked all the boxes and did fine. The defense was not so good. We both gave the defense a D. He was disjointed. He was rambling. He went on way too long. Didn't make a whole bunch of sense. It was typical defense lawyer stuff. So we'll see how much of the replay of the opening statements we can get through during the break today before the lunch hour. And they called the officer whose body cam footage we saw on scene at the time. They called her to the stand. She just testified that she was there, how her camera works, that it was her that did it, and those are the things that were told to her. Straight. They brought in George Torres Jr.'s brother, who said that his last conversation with his brother was earlier that evening. That George had called him, and he could hear Sarah yelling in the background. saying something about he's hitting me or something like that, and then George said something along the lines of, I gotta go, I gotta go. Does it sound like I'm underwater? When did that start? Hmm. Let me see. When did that happen? Hmm. That's not good. Huh. Uh, I have no idea why it's sounding like that. I can hear it, but let me check a couple of levels. Stare at the dog for a minute. Well, trying again. If that sounds any better. Not really. All right, I'll mess with it here as we go along. Huh, that's really odd. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna reboot my microphone here. Hang on, people. Okay, let's see. How is that? Is that better? Oh, there we go. Huh. No clue what that was all about. All right. Just rebooted the Roadcaster, and that didn't work. So I just rebooted the browser. That was fun, wasn't it? Anyway, welcome back. Let me mute myself so I don't continue to hear myself on a delay. Well, if you want to, if it makes you feel better, although it was not a boomer thing, because I don't know what happened. It was good at the beginning, and then at some point it went over. But if it makes you feel happy, if it makes you, as my guests, feel any better, go ahead and mark off Vice's Boomers something on your bingo card. I think you would be completely and horribly wrong to do so, but you know, I can't stop you. And I just out of solidarity, I marked it off on my bingo card too. Yeah. And let's see. We've got the court thing going. We got the court camera. It is live. Now we need to reboot the doggos here. Let me reboot the pig dogs. And the pig dogs are coming here in just a quick second. Where is pig dogs? There's pig dog number 1, Strawberry. Boom. Hey, what's up, Straubs? And Yoda has assumed a sleeping position over here. We'll watch Yoda dream for a bit. There we go. We've got the dogs back. Now bring the court back, and we are in business for today. Well, it looks like we're getting ready to go. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, what the evidence in this case is.
Oh, never mind. That's the opening statements. Now you can, if you didn't mark off Jeff Boomered something, now you can. That's the opening statements. We've still got the great seal of the state of Florida on the cam here. Great, there we are. That's where we've got. Now we have officially Boomered something. Now I can't say anything. All right, we're still waiting for the trial to start today for day 2. So we'll go with the original plan. We will go back to the opening statements and listen to a little bit of the opening statements. The best way, I think, to make sure that the court starts on time or as early as possible is to go do something else. The minute we start watching the opening statements, they will go live with the court. So in order to move this forward, I think we should just go check out the opening statements. We'll rewatch those because, as we mentioned earlier, the audio was horrific. So we're now going over to Fox Local 35 in Orlando, who did a mega boost on the volume to make it audible to us.
I want to show you that this defendant tipped Jorge Torres shot in a suitcase. She was able to do this because at the
These are
time
opening statements.
He only weighed 103 pounds. And she did this with the malicious intent to punish him. And then she went up to sleep and left him to take his final breaths on this earth alone. How many breaths those were, we don't know. The evidence is going to show that it was at least for about 15 minutes, because there's going to be 2 videos that the defendant herself took of this event. The evidence is going to show George Torres is dead because in this defendant's judgment, he deserved it. And out of a conscious disregard for whether he lived or died, you will see and hear these videos. What I expect you will hear from a video that began at 11:12 p.m., 45 seconds, on February 23rd, 2020, in Orange County, Florida, is a suitcase on the ground, face down, with the zippers facing the floor. You will hear Sarah, the defendant will say, "For everything you've done to me." Sarah, for everything.
Okay, one thing if you didn't know, he's reading the transcript from the video rather than showing the video of her filming him inside the suitcase and the Sarah. He's not showing the video because the judge ruled that there were going to be no demonstrative evidence, no displays or anything like that shown during opening statements. The defense wanted to bring in some pictures of Sarah Boone with a bruise on her face and other things. And it just got to the point where the judge ultimately said, nobody gets demonstratives. You can read the transcript. I mean, he didn't say this, but the effect is they couldn't show the video during the opening statements, but they could read the transcript. So that's why he's reading the transcript rather than showing the video.
You've done to me. Sarah, fuck you. And then the defendant laughs. Sarah, fuck you. And the defendant laughs. Sarah, stupid. Sarah, that's my name. Don't wear it out. Sarah, I can't fucking breathe, baby. Seriously. Yeah, that's what you do when you choke me. Sarah. 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 The defendant laughs again. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe. She laughs again. That's on you. Sarah, I can't breathe. She laughs again.
Oh, yes, F-bomb bingo.
Words. And I would submit the evidence is going to show, because of the intoxication from alcohol, is the next thing she says. Sarah, 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 I can't breathe, baby. That's what I feel like when you cheat on me. Sarah, fuck you. I can't fucking breathe, Sarah. You should probably shut the fuck up. Sarah.
Yeah, we've hit the F-bomb quota for the week in the first few minutes here. Please mark off F-bomb on your bingo card. And mark off
The last thing you will hear the defendant say to Mr. Torres as he is face down, zipped shut in a suitcase. That, again, began at 11:12:45 and lasts just over 2 minutes. At 11:23 and 3 seconds p.m., there's a second 22-second video, and it's the defendant zooming in on the suitcase. And all you hear during this 22 seconds, after he's been in this suitcase since at least 11:12 p.m., is one more time, Sarah.
So I think it would have been more powerful if he would have been able to show the video, just because it's her doing it. But he read that in such a stoic, kind of semi-creepy way that I think it had an impact of its own.
How did we get to this point where 103-pound George Torres gets put into this suitcase left to die? Well, the next morning, the defendant wakes up, late morning, perhaps early afternoon, somewhere in this time range, several hours later. And she goes downstairs, and she doesn't see George anywhere, Torres, and eventually realizes, oh my God, he's in the suitcase. The first thing she does after taking him out, and I believe you will hear a description by the defendant saying, he took his little legs out. At some point she makes that statement. And tries to resuscitate him. Hears gurgling as she presses down on his 103-pound chest, forcing whatever air was trapped in there out and gurgling. Then the next thing she does is she doesn't call 911. She calls Brian. Brian.
And that's kind of an interesting thing too, that maybe we haven't really appreciated enough, was when she finds her boyfriend of 3.5 years still in this suitcase where she left him the night before, and he's probably clearly dead. She doesn't call 911. She calls her boyfriend. Well, sorry, she calls her ex-husband and tells him that her boyfriend is dead. And listening to the way that Brian Boone described it, it was just like it was a walk in the park. It was like a normal thing Sarah would call and tell him. He's like, yeah, she just called, said her boyfriend was dead and asked me if I could come on over. So I got the dog in the crate and got everything ready. I went on over. He didn't seem too surprised. I know he's had 4.5, almost 5 years to process, deal with it, and prepare for trial. But her ex-husband didn't sound like that was a particularly strange thing for Sarah to say. But he went over there, and it makes me wonder why she called him and not 911. People were speculating in chat, and I'm not a great conspiracy theorist kind of guy, but a lot of people were well, not a lot of people. One person, that's what same thing. One person in comments suggested that perhaps Sarah called him to help get rid of the boyfriend, to get rid of the body. I don't know if I believe that, but Brian Boone did the right thing. He got there, he walked into the entryway, saw some feet on the floor, and then, yeah, nope, I think I'll go outside and sit in my car until the cops come. Yeah, she's used to having him fix things for her. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's not a possibility. I'm just saying I haven't seen anything to really substantiate that. And that's a little too creepy. Agony Goose says he was 5 foot, maybe 5'1". He was 5 foot 2 inches, 103 pounds. She's 5 foot 3 inches, and she weighed, according to her arrest documents, weighed 140. So she outweighed him by about 40 pounds and had him by an inch.
Brian Boone is her ex-husband. They share a child in common. And this date, February 24th, 2020, is a Monday. A normal work day for most people. School day for their child that they share in common. But after they got divorced, the arrangement was every other weekend, they'll co-parent. And that weekend included Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's that free schedule. And then Monday through Tuesdays, their child would be her responsibility. And Wednesdays and Thursdays, their child would be Mr. Brian Boone's responsibility. So February 23rd, 2020 was a Sunday. And now he's led into Monday, 2020. Mr. Boone had been trying actually to contact the defendant several times that morning because he just wanted to confirm she was going to get their child after school that day.
That was another thing that Brian Boone testified to, that he had to keep trying to call her and call her and call her and call her to try to get a hold of her to make sure she was going to come and pick up their son from school, because she often would just flake out. She had problems picking him up, had problems watching him on the weekend, on her weekends, and he blamed that all on alcohol. So because of her alcohol problem, she would forget to pick him up at school. She wouldn't have him she'd forget it was their weekend together, etc. So they're pointing this out. That's why he was calling her, because he had to make sure that she was sober enough and remembered to go get the kid. But she didn't answer the phone, and eventually she called him.
And there had been a history of reliability issues on that issue on her part.
The history of reliability, right?
You will see in the phone record, he calls her, and then she finally calls him back instead of calling 911. And being the nice co-parent that he is, he comes over. It's a short drive, 10 minutes. And as she's explaining to him what the heck is going on, he peeks in through the front door of her townhouse, which allows you a view all the way to the back sliding glass door. You're going to see that her kitchen is off to the right, but there's a doorway that you can see all the way through. Then on the back side of the kitchen in the breakfast room area, there's tables and stuff. There's also some blue legs sticking out in view. Brian Boone says, check please. You need to call 911. He doesn't set foot into that townhouse. He does wait outside though, being the good co-parent that he has been. So now After having first called her ex-husband, after having first waited for Brian Boone to come over, the defendant makes the 911 call. What you will not hear are tears. You will not hear sorrow. You will hear a certain level of concern. My boyfriend and I were playing last night. Put him in a suitcase, and we were playing hide and seek kind of thing. I fell asleep. Found him dead in the suitcase this morning. I don't know what happened. He had blood coming out of his mouth. Don't know if it was an aneurysm. Pulled him out of the suitcase, tried to give him CPR. He was in the suitcase and I fell asleep. He's not awake, he's purple, he's not breathing. There's some instructions about how to do CPR given to her, asking about whether an AED is available to shock his heart.
That was the other thing. They played the 911 call. That she didn't, and again, I've said this many, many times. How people react in crisis are very, very different. I tend to be very calm. If there's some horrific crisis, injury, blood, broken pieces of people and stuff, I tend to get very, very calm and like ice cold and deal with it. There was something a little bit off about her 911 call. She was kind of agitated and hysterical, but kind of not. I can't describe it. Something you have to go back and watch the 911 call, but it was just, it just seemed weird to me. And I really don't have a better way of explaining it than it just seemed weird. All right, before we get back into this and before trial starts, we need to clear off a few things here. Mario, the $1.99 super chat. Judge did her a favor denying that one. The snacks. Did her a favor denying the snacks? Yeah, this is probably gonna be the last day of the Boone snacks. It's just too much. Lancelot, $6.52 with the $5. Jeff's audio is in a suitcase. Well, we figured it out. We got it taken care of. Thanks to everybody who mentioned that. Buddha Berries also mentioned it. Mic check, please. We did. We got it taken care of. Thanks, Buddha Berries. Appreciate it. Island with the $2. Naming the seal Selena Gomez, and you can't stop me. Well, for some reason, it was always the clock, and then as soon as the trial started, it became the seal. So we may have to swap out Sarah McLachlan and go with Selena Gomez. We might have to do that. We'll see. Please stand by on that one. Buddhaberry says motion to put that shock garter that Sarah was supposed to have on the lawyers and zap them if they step away from the mic. Oh yeah, I totally support that order. That is a court order that I can get behind. Just zap them if they. Now, see, this is the interesting thing also about the microphones. We all complain that the lawyers aren't using the microphones. In fairness, and in fact, they're not using the microphones so that people watching on Law and Crime or Legal Vices or anywhere else can hear. That's not the reason they have the mics. They have the mics so essentially the judge can hear, the jury can hear, and the court reporter can hear. So if they all can hear, if the jury, well, the defendant too, the defendant, the judge, the jury, and the court, if all those people can hear, the judge isn't going to tell them to use the microphone. It just annoys the hell out of us because we want to hear it. But yeah, I would still support, shocking lawyers that stay away from this. But if you go back to 1994, to the O.J. Simpson trial, 1994 and 1995, they all had wireless FM mics, and the sound was gorgeous. 30 years ago, it was gorgeous, and they just won't. They actually they talked about doing this here, but yeah, anyway, yeah, let's just shock them if they step away from the microphone. Let's talk trivia. Rob says, question, Jeff, I assume that the judge did not honor Sarah Boone's request for snacks. They did not, which is why we have our own Sarah Boone forbidden snack plate, full of the things she was denied, which are totally inappropriate in a court case, especially a murder trial. Exactly. Yeah, she was more concerned about getting a juice box and some potato chips than being on trial for her life. Been there, done that. Says the people. We got this question asked a lot. Who are these people behind the judge? We finally figured it out. Been there, done that. Said been there, done that. Says those are not law students behind the judge. It's the bishopric. If you know, you know. Law. If you do know, then you do know. But actually, they are law students. We found out that he leads the moot court team at the local law school, and he's brought them in to court to observe the trial. So they're his law students. And Rabbit Stick, a member for 5 months. Thank you so much. With the Howling Wolf. Ooh, clock will always be referred to as no, it won't. No, it won't. Well, at least not by me. All right. Thanks for that. And right now we are still waiting for the court to begin. We still have the great seal of the state of Florida blasted up there. So I'd like to get on there so that we can put up our like and subscribe poll for today. We've got 865 people waiting for court to start. So come on, Judge. Let's do it. And 403 likes. Half of you haven't done your job. While we're waiting for court to start, just get down there and smash that subscribe button, smash the like button, and then we'll put up a poll for you here in a little bit. But let's see, we're working our way towards 82,000 subscribers. We currently have 81,386. We need 14 more subscribers to get to 81,400. And 114 more to get to 81,500. So everybody, give me 100, give me 114 subscriptions now. No, just kidding. Just subscribe if you want to, and I would graciously and gratefully accept your subscription as we cover this trial. We got the other trial we're going to cover as soon as this one's over. We're going to go back and watch my mind has just gone blank. Leilani. Is it Smith? What the hell's Leilani's last name? My brain has just gone blank. The Leilani trial, the woman who basically is alleged to have murdered her 20-month-old child and put him in a dumpster where he was crushed up by a garbage truck and dumped in a landfill. Simmons, that's what it was. Leilani Simon. That's right. I knew it started with an S. That's why. All right, good. Yeah, we're going to watch that. And there was a motion hearing in the Courtney Clenny OnlyFans murder the other day. We got to catch up on that. There's been some developments in the Karen Reed trial. Rumor has it that Judge Bev may be off the bench in January. Just a rumor so far. I haven't seen anything to substantiate it, but there's more filings in the Maya Kowalski, the Take Care of Maya trial. We got tons of stuff to cover when this is done. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and follow us for all of these things. And let's continue while we wait for trial to begin.
It's too late. He's cold, he's stiff, he's purple. We were playing hide and seek. We were playing hide and seek. This is horrible. This is horrific what happened. Like, what happened? We were playing hide and seek last night and I fell asleep. So she mentions that there was blood coming out of his mouth. And his body, like all bodies in his deaths, was taken to the 9th District Medical Examiner's office in autopsy. What the doctor found was what you would expect after being left in a suitcase, talking about the fetal position. He passed from positional asphyxiation, meaning like you're not going to get full breaths when you're crumpled up like an accordion, and environmental suffocation. You don't have to have a plastic bag over your head, tape shut with a full roll of duct tape to seal it off 100% and be worthy of the vacuum of space to environmentally suffocate. It's close enough if you can't get the oxygen and the CO2 coming in and out of your environment. But she also did notice, he suffered from blunt force trauma on his torso, in his face, his mouth. She'll use words like contusion, will help her explain contusions and bruises. She'll use words like hematomas. Will help her understand for you all that means bleeding under the skin and blood, what you expect from bruise. That's why they're running blue. But he had all this additional trauma. He had trauma on his fingers as well.
Yes, he had trauma on his fingers because apparently he tried to get out and she whacked his hand with a baseball bat, she said. She she said that. She admits to whacking his hand with a baseball bat as he was trying to escape. And yes, for those of you wondering, on the stand right there next to the lawyer there in front of the court, that is the suitcase in that box. That's the suitcase he was in. That tiny little suitcase over there. It's the mid-range suitcase. It's not like the full-size suitcase, and it's not a carry-on. It's the one that's kind of slightly smaller than the largest standard luggage size. So yeah, that's the suitcase there. And just looking at Jules is our reporter in court today. She'll be joining us probably at lunch for 15 or so minutes to catch us up to speed on what's happening. But she said the suitcase is still sitting there in the middle of the courtroom untouched. Okay, she's also just sent me a message saying the reason for the delay is that not all of the jurors have arrived yet. So there's late jurors. Okay, let me give her a big thanks for that. Thanks. That's not going to make the judge happy when trial gets delayed for at least 30 minutes because not all of the jurors are there. All right, so we don't know when the jurors are going to show up and how long it's going to take for the judge to yell at them for being late. But let's get back on with this here.
So now, the sheriff's office, Orange County Fire Rescue show up, and the defendant interacts with the first patrol officer. You will see and hear that body-worn camera. It's more of the same of what we heard on the 911 call. It's like hide and seek. Things are good. I fell asleep. I don't know what happened. A few hours later, the detectives from the homicide unit at the Orange County Sheriff's Office approach her and are ready to interview her after doing some initial things, which includes grabbing her cell phone off of a counter that was found at a suitcase of Mr. Torres and giving it to one of their digital forensic examiners who we'll hear from later in the trial. But it's time to give a first interview with the defendant. So they do a first interview with the defendant in one of their unmarked detective patrol cars there on the scene. And the basics of this remain the same, but there's a little more elaboration, as you would expect from trained detectives versus getting the 911 call taken. But the basics of what the defendant tells them is we had wine, we painted, we drew, we did puzzles. The particular wine we had was a Chardonnay from the Woodbridge winery. The bottles, plural, are in the trash. We started about 4 p.m. after Mr. Torres went to the store. Puzzles, art, listening to music, enjoying each other's company. We were literally just enjoying one another's company. The other bottle of
doesn't sound like there was a great battle going on there, does it?
Wine that was left over from Boone wasn't even half full. So the description she is saying is one bottle of wine and plus a fraction of a bottle of wine left over from the night before.
Yes, and those bottles of wine, we speculated for a while, but it was confirmed that those bottles of wine weren't your standard 750 milliliter bottles of wine. They were Magnum bottles of wine, 1.5 liters of wine. And they had 2 of them. So basically 3 liters or 3 quarts for you people in the imperial system. So these 2 people that weighed 100 pounds and 140 pounds, and there was no food found in his stomach. So a 100-pound dude drinking a liter and a half of wine on an empty stomach and her doing probably the same thing. Yeah, it's a little more than just 2 of us shared a bottle of wine. 2 of us shared 2 large bottles of wine.
4. Ladies and gentlemen, not all bottles of wine are made the same.
Exactly.
Many of us may envision what you would expect at a restaurant. Those are 750 milliliters of that. Bottles of wine that were recovered from the defendant's trash can were 1.5 liters, so the equivalent of 2 standard bottles of wine. A 1.5 liter bottle of wine is 50 ounces. Given that a standard serving of wine is 5 ounces, you can begin to do the math. And there's receipts. The day before, Saturday, February 22nd, 2020, there is a receipt from Publix for a bottle of Woodbridge wine for $9.74. And then Sunday at 12:17 p.m., there is another receipt for $9.74 for a Woodbridge Chardonnay bottle of wine. And then at about 5:30 in the afternoon on February 23rd, again, there is another receipt for the same bottle of wine for the same price. And those 2 bottles of wine were recovered. They're going to be produced to you in evidence, and you will see that they are in fact Magnum bottles of wine. So that's the context that we're dealing with when we hear things like, we only had 1 bottle of wine and we finished what was left in the bottle of wine from before. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's 2 1.5 liters that apparently were consumed by a 103-pound man and the defendant, who is in the same weight class.
She's got him by about 2 weight classes,
Plus,
according to the document.
If you believe that the defendant and the decedent would leave leftover wine from any given day, any additional wine that was remaining from the 1.5 liters from Saturday. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a lot of wine. So in that context, we were just having wine, enjoying each other's company. At one point, we play hide and seek. She says she didn't zip it up all the way. There was enough room, in her words again, there was enough room for his little fingers to get out. We were still having a good time and whatever. And basically, you know, Mr. Torres is stressing out about jobs, his ex-wife, about money. And so they're just doing puzzles and doing things to keep his mind off of it. Doing art, playing with the dogs, dancing with the dogs, playing hide and seek. We were always trying to outdo each other where we could find each other the best. When they started playing hide and seek, she went up to the shower and then got tired of hanging out in the shower and came down, and that's when she found him playing around in the suitcase. We both thought it was funny. I'm going to zip you up. 2 little fingers could stick out. And she went upstairs thinking, he'll get out, we're going to have sex and go to sleep and call it a day. It was a good day. She insists that they had wine, but we're not drunk. You will be able to assess that for yourselves when you hear the recording she made. No ill will between us last night. Last argument, maybe last week. Don't really argue. We came home, drink, smoked, did art, listened to music, play with the dogs. We drink what we can afford. We used to be able to afford liquor, but now we can only afford wine. And that's how that day ends with the police. She goes and sleeps and stays at her ex-husband's house the night of February 24th and the 25th. What they are doing, and by they I mean Orange County Sheriff's Office, in part, is going through her phone. That's when they discovered the 2 videos that I just described for you. And there's other things in the phone, which I will discuss with you in a little bit. But she's summoned in for another interview, and she sits down and gives another interview on February 25th, now Tuesday. She does describe past instances of violence. You're going to hear about that. She's going to say, Mr. Torres had hit her with a curtain rod about a month ago. Since then, though, like, we've been good. I've been good. She describes that he comes at her all the time. He comes at me. So it's either I flee or I try to go upstairs and go to sleep. That's usually what it is. I don't.
Okay, that hitting with a shower, he had allegedly hit her with a shower curtain rod a month before. That's something we couldn't hear very well last time. So I guess good.
No, if you talk to Brian, her husband, about any of that, but most of the time I flee and I go over there. There's a discussion about why
She stays with him, and you'll hear that for yourself. She will say that she doesn't really want to drink. She just takes an occasional drink. She drinks to placate him, Mr. Torres. She says that you're going to see phone videos of Mr. Torres smashing her TV in the past, like a month earlier. You may see that too. But she doesn't get drunk. When she drinks, she likes being non-compos mentis, her words, not mine, having her wits about herself.
But that was kind of a misstatement. Non-compos mentis means mentally incompetent. She liked to be compos mentis. So she couldn't get drunk. She doesn't get drunk. She doesn't want to get drunk. And speaking of getting drunk, it's time for the today's like and subscribe poll. I have put up today's like and subscribe poll. Oh no, did it just reset on me? I hope it posted before it reset. Otherwise I have to redo it. Damn it. Never mind. I hit publish the poll and then it reset my screen. So never mind. Well, I'll rewrite the poll real quickly here. Please stand by.
Then she gets to the hide and seek again and describes that they've played it 3 times before, but had never zipped one another shut in it before. And they were really just running out of places to hide because it's just a townhome. She does not remember, according to her, she does not remember taking any photos or videos of the night's events. At this point, they ask her, well, would you like to see it? And she says, I can't watch this. I flipped them over. I flipped them over, and that's where it was. Guys, this is killing me right now. That's why I flipped it over between the 2 videos. I didn't do anything intentional. Discussion over whether he had enough room to get any of his fingers out from the zipper. My intention was not to leave him there. We both got in there. Both of us were in there. When she went upstairs, my plan was not to, quote, he'll be up here any minute. My plan wasn't to leave him in the suitcase. Why is all this going on? It's the drinking. That's what it is. It's the drinking. I thought he was okay. Guys, that's how we were with each other. Nobody understands our relationship. This whole suitcase thing never happened before, though she described it happening before. I'll never drink alcohol again. She insists that she has no injuries on her, and you don't have to take her word for it because they took photographs of her and there were no injuries on her. She insists over and over that there was no violence that day. It's like, okay, we're in a good place right now. Ask her about saying fuck you to Mr. Torres. Well, that's just being playful and having a good day. Everybody's having a good day.
Everybody had a wonderful day except George. All right, this time we do have the like and subscribe poll set up. People, it is up. We've got it up. Today's like and subscribe poll, which is just a poll to remind the 1,000, we have nearly 1,000 people here right now, is to remind you to hit the like button. We've only got 500 likes, so literally 500 of you just need to get down there and smash that like button. Please do that. Please hit the like button. And while we're paused here briefly, and I would be deeply honored if you would do me the privilege of subscribing to the channel as well and taking a chance on me as we bring you this and other cases. We currently have 81,392 subscribers. 8 more gets us to 81,400. 108 would get us to 81,500. So let's do that. That's the goal today. Today's goal is to get to 81,500. We need 108 of you to hit that subscribe button. Do it. But once you've done that, once you've hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and feel free to come on over and vote. What's the most important thing on Sarah Boone's mind right now? What's the number one thing she's thinking about? Hangry, snacks, need snacks, or why is everyone so dumb? Or what's my next version of the story going to be? Or let's get this over so I can go home. Which of those are the most important thing? Which of those is the most important thing going through Sarah Boone's head right now? And again, for those of you that are joining, wondering where day 2 of the trial is, they are currently, apparently from what our person inside the court, Jules, says, they are waiting for all of the jurors to show up. So once the jurors show up, we'll stop watching the prosecution's opening statements and we'll go live with the trial. So while we're waiting, perfect time, like, subscribe. And we do have one super chat that's come in since our last stop. Tootly Pip with a £2 says, was it a mega pint of wine? It was 2 mega pints of wine. It was a mega pint. And they both had one. Thank you very much for the super chat, Toddly Pip. Appreciate it. Let's get back to the opening statement.
Touch him, nor did he touch me. Her words. What else is found on her phone? There's a conversation between Mr. Torres's brother, and again, nobody knows who's using these phones at the time text messages are sent in these records that you're going to see. But it's indicated that there's a...
All right, looks like the judge is getting back on the bench and the camera is zooming out. So let's go live with the court cam and see what is up. Sarah's being brought into the courtroom.
The parties approach the bench as soon as Madam Clerk calls it. We can do that.
Case number 2020-2603, the state of Florida versus
All right, we're going live, people.
Charges and Notre Dame. For the record, beginning with the state.
William J. for the state.
Defense.
James Owens for Sarah Boone.
Tell me how you think for Sarah Boone. Kevin Beck on that servant.
Ms. Boone, ready right now to be sworn. Please do you swear or affirm to the testimony you should give, just the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
Good morning, ma'am. Can you state your full name and date of birth for the record for me?
Sarah Boone, 10-10-7-7.
Ms. Boone is seated at counsel's table wearing a black jacket and a white
Where's her lawyer?
multicolored shirt. Looks like some splotching on it. She is in custody. However, she's not wearing any restraints. So we will be standing when our jury panel enters and exits. The parties may approach.
Oh, I'm always nervous when they approach. I'm just waiting for them to say, "Oh, we have a settlement. We've reached a plea agreement," and then it's going to be over, and then we're going to be sad. I want a verdict in this case. Well, so we don't know if the lawyer called for the sidebar or the judge called for the sidebar there. So I think the lawyers did. Because he said, yeah, we can do it after. We can do it after she's sworn in. So mark off lawyer calls for sidebar on your bingo card. And I will update the banner. Day 2. Strawberries wine.
All right, state, anything we need to address before we bring in our panel this morning?
Not for the state.
Defense.
No, sir.
All right. Ms. Boone, just a couple of questions before we bring in our panel this morning. Are you still satisfied with your lawyer's representation of you in this matter?
Very much so.
And are you still on board with the strategy that they are utilizing in your defense?
Yes.
All right, very good.
That's
Let's
a
go ahead
very
and
good
stand
question
and
to
bring
ask
in our
her,
panel.
because it may change day to day whether she's happy with her lawyer or not, and she's still on board with him. All right, the jury is being seated. And then they will call their next witness. The prosecution. Still the prosecution's case.
Jury entering.
All right. And while the jury's entering, we have 1,017 people here and 612 likes. Thank you so much, you 1,023 people now. Welcome here. You guys could be anywhere doing anything in the entire universe right now, but you've decided to spend your time here with me, and I greatly appreciate each and every one of you.
State, do you recognize our jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, do you recognize our jury? Yes. All right, everyone can be seated.
Yes, J. Katie Buck Jules is our person in court. We'll hear
Members
from her.
of the jury, good morning. Welcome back to 12 Alpha of the Orange County Courthouse. I hope that you all had a restful weekend and enjoyed your time with your loved ones, your friends, and your family. Just if you could, I gave you a long instruction on Friday before we broke. If you could please confirm that you complied with the court's instructions by raising your hand at this time. Record reflect that all members of our panel have raised their hands. Now, members of the jury, I know the line to get in this morning was quite long. So the lawyers have reminded me that on the right side of the entrance of the courthouse is a jury-only line. So if you can make your way all the way to the far right side of the entrance, there's a jury-only line. Yes, sir. Juror number 2 in the back. Huh? It was still quite long? Okay, thank you. Just wanted to bring that to your attention if you did not know. Obviously, if you're stuck, we're waiting on you. So don't feel anxiety or anything if you're stuck in that line.
Oh, it was
start till y'all get here.
It wasn't the jurors'
again,
fault.
Your sacrifice and your attentiveness in this process.
Okay.
With that,
Jurors are
State,
safe.
you can call your next witness.
Steve, we call Dr. Sarah Sadovich.
Everybody's named Sarah in this case. The defendant, the clock, the doctor. Dr. Sarah Segovich.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you should give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, thank you.
Good morning, doctor. Could you please state and spell your name for the record for us?
Sarah Zadovich, Sarydzowicz.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Not how I spelled
Good morning,
it.
ma'am.
Morning.
Can you tell us, what do you do for a living?
I'm a forensic pathologist.
And who do you work for?
I work for Orange County. We cover Orange County and Osceola County.
And how long have you been a forensic pathologist?
I've been at this office for about 12 years and then 1 year in Tampa, so about 13 years.
And what type of educational background do you have to be a forensic pathologist?
So I have a bachelor's degree in kinesiology from the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I went to medical school in Kansas City, Missouri. After that, I went to Cleveland, Ohio to do a 1 year rotating clinical internship. After that, I went back to the University of Wisconsin. I did my residency in anatomic pathology and clinical pathology. I have 2 fellowships or subspecialty training. One is in cytopathology from Northwestern University in Chicago. And then I did my forensic pathology fellowship in Tampa.
Is continuing education something that you must maintain in order to hold your position?
Yes, I have to do continuing education for my board certifications, which is in anatomic pathology, clinical pathology, and forensic pathology. And I also have to do separate continuing medical education to maintain my medical license for the state of Florida.
So tell us, what are your duties as a medical examiner?
So we're involved in what's called the medical legal investigation of deaths. And that just means that we investigate certain types of deaths. And there's a Florida statute or a Florida law that states which types of deaths that will be involved in investigating. And in general, they're deaths that are not natural. So accidents, suicides, homicides, or deaths that are natural but maybe unexpected. Those are the types of cases that we're involved in. And again, that Florida statute lays out exactly which types of cases that we'll be involved in. And the reason we're involved in that is our goal is to determine cause of death and manner of death in those individuals that we're investigating.
Could you tell us what an autopsy is, generally speaking?
So an autopsy is also called a postmortem or after-death examination. And there are kind of two main parts to it. The first part is what's called an external examination, which is just as it sounds. So that's making observations about an individual. So hair color, eye color, height, any sort of unique markings like scars or tattoos. And at that time, we're also looking for any external signs of diseases or injuries. After that, we go to what's called the internal examination. So that means that we open the body cavities, we remove all of the organs and dissect all of the organs. And again, as we're doing that, we're looking for any signs of diseases or injuries that might help explain why that person died. And we can also add ancillary tests or other tests. So things like toxicology, microbiology. It's a little bit dependent on each case, but we have options for other testing as well.
Can you tell us what is the cause and manner of death? And is this something that you document?
Yes, so cause of death is either a disease or an injury that ultimately results in an individual's death. Right? So it's very individual and unique to that individual. Manner of death is a way to categorize or group similar types of deaths together. And for manner of death, there's only 5 choices. So there would be natural, accident, suicide, homicide, or undetermined. So those are the manners of death.
In your career, approximately how many autopsies have you performed?
Around 3,000.
And have you previously testified as an expert witness in court?
Yes.
How many times?
Between 75 to 80.
And in what areas have you testified as an expert witness?
Forensic pathology.
Turning our attention to this case, did you perform the autopsy?
Yes.
And what were your findings as to cause and manner of death?
So the cause of death, which I put on the death certificate, is positional asphyxia with environmental suffocation. And the manner of death I classified as homicide.
Now, when you perform your autopsy, what information do you have at the time that you begin that examination?
It's incredibly variable. I can have a lot of background information. Sometimes I have none. It just depends on the particular case.
In this case, what information were you provided at the time?
So the information I had was that the decedent was with his girlfriend, and at some point in time in the night, he got into a suitcase, which was then zippered shut. At another point at time, I believe she went to bed, and then the next morning discovered that he was still in the suitcase. And I think that was in about an 11-hour time frame from the information that I had.
You mentioned asphyxia. Can you explain for us what asphyxia is?
Sure. So asphyxia is a very general term. It would be kind of like saying, I drive a car. Right? That's very generic, and we know that there are many different types of cars out there, right? So asphyxia simply means lack of oxygen or inadequate oxygen for an individual. And there are different categories of asphyxia. So you can have suffocation, which just means that there's obstruction of the airways. So that could be smothering, that could be somebody choking on a piece of food, or maybe just being in an environment where there's not enough oxygen in the air to sustain that individual. There's a category called strangulation. That would be compression of the neck, either blood vessels or airways. There's another category called mechanical asphyxia. That can be when the body is in an unusual or abnormal position where the actual mechanics of breathing can't occur. So that can be the position of the body, or it can be, like, let's say if a heavy object fell on somebody and you simply can't breathe because of the weight of that object. That would be a mechanical asphyxia. And then there's drowning. That's a different type of asphyxia. And there are a couple of other categories as well that are much less common.
Is there a most common type of asphyxia?
The most common would be ligature compression of the neck. So that would be like an event, a hanging. That would be the most common that we would see.
You also mentioned environmental suffocation. Could you tell us a little bit more what that means in more layman's terms?
So that just means that there's not enough oxygen in the environment that the person is in. You could think of somebody who's in an enclosed space where there's a fixed amount of oxygen. So as that oxygen is, as that person is breathing, they're using up all the oxygen. And once it's gone, there's no oxygen left. Or you could think of maybe people who are, climbing Mount Everest. There's not as much oxygen up there, and that's why they have oxygen tanks. So it just means that the amount of oxygen available in the air around that person is not enough to sustain them.
In this case, what can you tell us about how long George Torres was in that suitcase?
There's not a really good way for me to give you a time frame as to how long he was in that suitcase. Again, because there was both the component of positional asphyxia, being in an unusual position for a period of time, and then also the environmental suffocation component. Because within that suitcase, certainly there's going to be oxygen, but it's not going to be the same as if you were sitting in a room like this. And because there are those multiple components happening at the same time, there's not a really good way to estimate or say with scientific certainty, oh, he was in for X amount of time. There's really not a good way to do that.
I think the 13 hours she said he was in there is enough.
Is there any good way to approximate or determine the time that George Torres died?
There's not a good way to do that either, again, because there are so many different components at play at the time of his death. Sitting in a normal room like this, the percentage of oxygen that's available is about 20 to 21%. If that were to drop to 10 to 15%, the person can be impaired with judgment, they can be impaired with activity. Once that percentage drops between 8 to 10%, most people will lose consciousness. And at a percentage of 8% oxygen or less, that's when we would expect the death to occur. And so again, there's not a really good way to measure the amount of oxygen that would have been available to him in that suitcase, in addition to the fact that he was in an unusual position.
What position were you able to determine he was in that suitcase?
I wasn't able to see what position he was in. By the time that our medical legal death investigators were at the scene, he was already removed from the suitcase. Based on some of the findings, I favor that he was most likely in like a fetal type position. So knees flexed, arms flexed, and the head most likely flexed forward. But again, that's from my findings. I didn't see what position he was in.
What side of his body would he be resting on in this fetal position?
That's that most likely his left side. However, I do say the caveat that some of the findings are dependent on time, meaning that, if that suitcase had been moved or flipped over, that could be different than what I'm seeing at the time of my examination.
Tell us, what is skin slippage?
So after death, the body goes through a series of progressive changes. And one of those changes is skin slippage. And what that does is it tells me that that person is a little bit further away from the actual time of death. So it's not something that's going to occur immediately after death for most people. It's something that would occur a little bit later on in that process of changes that happens after death.
And tell us, what is rigor mortis?
So rigor mortis is also called the post-mortem stiffening of muscles. And again, that's one of the changes that occurs after death. Most of the times that will occur before we see skin slippage. But these changes are very variable from individual to individual. And it also depends a lot the environment the person is in. So for example, those changes that we're going to see happen more quickly in a warm environment. Somebody who maybe is engaged in a physical or violent struggle, those changes are going to occur more rapidly. And then it also depends on the person themselves, their relative size, their relative health. Those things can all impact the changes that we see after death.
How does skin slippage and rigor mortis inform your findings about how long George Torres was likely in that suitcase?
So again, the time frame that I had was about 11 hours, just from the last time that he was known to be in the suitcase versus the time that he was found. So I'm basing it off of that. So about an 11-hour time period. When I did my examination, the rigor mortis was already dissipating or leaving. Also, there was some skin slippage. And so if he had not been in the suitcase, if he had been out of the suitcase, I would not expect that advanced amount of change. It's compatible with him being in that suitcase for a longer period of time. It would have been warmer. And also if he had been, struggling to get himself out, engaging that physical activity, those are things that are going to accelerate or speed up that process. So my findings at the time of the examination are compatible with that 11-hour time period, or, somewhere around there.
Additionally, did you note any injuries to the body of George Torres?
Yes.
These injuries that you noted to the body of George Torres, did you document them on what's called a body chart?
Yes, the diagram on a body chart, and we also take pictures as I'm going through my examination.
I'd be happy if I never heard the words skin slippage ever again in my life.
Your Honor, may approach the witness who has been previously marked for identification and shown to defense as States R.
You may.
Ma'am, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as States R. You recognize this document?
Yes.
And can you tell us, what is this document?
That's a copy of my body diagram.
So,
It's a copy of my body diagram.
and does this fairly and accurately represent the diagram that you created in this case for George Torres?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as States R into evidence. No objection.
What was pre-marked as States R will be received into evidence without objection as States 12.
Your Honor, request permission to publish.
All right, we're going to get to
Yes,
see
sir.
the diagram of where all of the marks were on his body, all of the injuries on George Torres's body. Don't zoom in on the junk,
So,
counselor.
ma'am, on this body chart, can you describe for us and point out?
That's a lot of injuries.
What
holy
was
shit.
the first blunt impact injury that you identified?
So there were some blunt impact injuries to his head. I don't think it's on this one, but there were some blunt impact injuries to his head right up here around the eye and on the mouth area.
And then, did you notate any injuries to his hand?
Yes, so there were some ecchymoses, or you can think of that as like a large kind of bruise on both hands.
What other blunt impact injuries did you identify?
So there was a series of ecchymoses on the left side of the back, which right about here.
And any others?
There were some on the forearms as well.
And you use this body chart, you say, in addition to photographing the injuries that you document, correct?
Yes.
As part of your examination, and I believe it's on the body chart itself, do you document the height and weight of the person as well?
Yes.
And what was the height of Mr. Torres?
So technically for us, it's length. Height is the measurement that's taken while someone is standing. So his length was 62 inches, and his weight was 103 pounds.
In regards to these blunt impact injuries, how is it that you come to the conclusion that these injuries were the result of blunt impacts?
So these are typical wounding patterns for blunt force trauma. And when I say blunt force trauma, that can mean something striking a part of the body, or on the other hand, it can be
Like a
the body
baseball bat?
striking an object.
Like the
And
stairs.
that causes injury to the skin, to the soft tissue, and sometimes the deeper tissues, depending on how severe or how strong that blunt force trauma is.
Are these injuries consistent with a person being struck with a baseball bat?
They could be, yes.
Are they consistent with a person being pushed down a flight of stairs?
They could be, yes.
Oh, it's almost like I know what I'm talking about sometimes.
Can you say whether or not these injuries occurred while George Torres was in the suitcase?
No.
Why is it that you cannot say that?
So all of these injuries seem to have occurred around the same time, meaning that they're relatively acute or new. They're not things that are healing or something that happened last week. So they all occurred around the same time. But you can't really look at a bruise or a contusion and say, oh, that happened 2 hours ago. There's not a good way to do that.
Are these injuries consistent with them occurring?
That's a very interesting point. One that we hadn't heard yet was all of these injuries occurred around the same time. It's not, it wasn't like in the process of healing or old. That's a new piece of information. Let's listen to this question again.
There's not a good way to do that.
Are these injuries consistent with them occurring while he was inside the suitcase?
Yes, they could be.
As part of your examination, do you also check the toxicology of George Torres?
Yes.
And is that something that's pretty standard in any autopsy?
Yes.
And what were the toxicology results for George Torres?
So there was a blood alcohol level of 0.139 milligrams per deciliter, and there was also caffeine and nicotine detected as well.
That level of alcohol, is that over the legal limit in the state of Florida to drive?
Sure. So for driving under the influence, that's a 0.08. So that is higher than that.
What does that alcohol level at the time of your autopsy tell you about George Torres's level of impairment 11 hours earlier?
So I don't necessarily know that it was 11 hours earlier, but it was at the time of death, at or near the time of his death. That's what the blood alcohol level was. So at that level, everyone reacts a little bit differently to alcohol. And some of it has to do with whether or not somebody is accustomed to drinking alcohol or if they've never had alcohol. So you can develop tolerance. But at that level, there's going to be impairment of judgment. There can be impairment of motor skills. There can be slurring of words. Something that's called disinhibition or lack of inhibition. And again, it's really variable from person to person, but those are the common things that you would see at that level.
Would that level of alcohol impair the ability to problem solve?
It can, yes.
You also stated earlier that you document your autopsy findings also photographically, correct?
Yes.
Lancelot 652 says, isn't asking about the bat and stairs sort of leading. Oh, he's just asking if it's consistent with this type of a thing. It's not presupposing or leading them towards a conclusion. She's free to say yes or no. And she's an expert.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness who's been marked for identification as states Q and been shown to defense?
You may.
Ma'am, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as stage Q. Could you take a look at this composite of photographs to yourself and then look up once you're finished?
While she's reviewing that, Halmir23 says, God help us all, it's a Dodgers-Yankees World Series.
Ma'am, do you recognize these photographs?
Yes.
Are these photographs a portion of the photographs that you took in your autopsy of George Torres in this case?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately represent how he appeared and how his injuries appeared to you at the time you performed your autopsy?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as stage Q into evidence.
No objection. What was pre-marked as states Q will be received into evidence without objection as states 13.
And Jill M says she was playing hide
Your
and
Honor,
beat.
request permission to
Yikes.
publish.
You may do so.
All right, they're going to show these to the jury. I don't think Law and Crime is going to show them to us. Daryl Smith says, that's Jan from The Office. Thank you so much, Daryl.
Ma'am, I'm showing you photo 1 from State's Composite. Tell us, what is this a photo of?
So this is the identification photo that's basically just showing from about the level of the collarbones up.
And this is George Torres.
Yes.
Did you note any signs of injury in this photo?
So there's some ecchymoses around the left eye. This picture, it's a little bit hard to see, but I think there's another one coming up. There's also an area of ecchymoses up here on the left side of the forehead with also some swelling associated with that. The lips have some contusions and small lacerations. And then on the left shoulder here, you can see a little bit of some ecchymoses here, or again, ecchymoses are kind of like big bruises.
No reaction whatsoever from Sarah.
Composite. What are we looking at in this photograph?
So this is his right arm near the elbow. And right here, you can see this kind of darker area. So this looks similar to an abrasion, but it's actually, it's what's called drying artifact. And again, this is one of the reasons that I think that he was in that suitcase for a little bit longer. Most likely that was a pressure point where part of that suitcase was resting on his elbow in that area. And then after death, that tissue dries out, and that's the discoloration that you're seeing there.
Turning to states 3 from the composite.
So here you can see a little bit better. I don't know if you can get a feeling for this, but this area is what we call edema or swelling. So this whole area is edema. It's a little bit discolored, so ecchymosis. And then again, really at the corner of the eye here, you can see that darker discoloration. And so those are injuries from blunt force trauma.
States 4 from the composite.
So this is the left shoulder and arm. So again, you can see this kind of red to purple area. So this is all ecchymosis, and then a couple of linear abrasions or scratches.
Stage 5 from the composite.
This is the same area, just a little bit closer up, so you can see this whole area of ecchymosis. It's a little bit variegated, differential in color, but again, that's all blunt force trauma.
And what part of the body is this we're looking at?
This is the left shoulder.
Stage 6 from the composite.
That's the same area, but in this picture, we have a scale or the ruler.
And why do we use scales and rulers?
That's just to give an idea of how big the area is or how large the injury is.
Stage 7 from the composite.
So this is the left forearm and hand, and you can see the area right here that's a little bit red to purple, and then also right here on the left hand, right here and here. Those are all areas of ecchymosis, again, blunt force trauma.
Stage 8 from the composite.
Again, the left arm. Just from a little bit of a different angle, so you can see, and a little bit with the elbow too here, but you can see all these areas of ecchymosis.
Stage 9 from the composite.
And now looking at the left hand, a little bit closer up, so you can kind of see a little bit better these areas of ecchymosis.
Stage 10 from the composite.
And again, the left hand just closer up.
Stage 11 from the composite.
So now we're looking at the back, and you can see that there are these linear abrasions in the mid-back.
Are those scratch marks for?
They could be scratch marks. They could also be blunt impact, more of just a straight-on blunt impact, especially being in that suitcase if there are objects in there.
What is the discoloration that we see around his shoulders and then some other spots on his back as well?
Sure. So you're talking about this area?
Yes.
So that's called livor mortis or lividity. And that's one of the changes that we see again after death. And basically what that is it's postmortem after death, settling of blood in the blood vessels. And so it's dependent on gravity and it's dependent on the person's position. So what I mean by that is we're seeing it on his back because after the time of death, at some point in time, he was more positioned on his back. And the areas that are lighter, that's because for a couple of reasons. It could be the position of the body, meaning that it's not in the gravity dependent position, or there could be something pressing on it. So either one of those.
Stage 12 from the composite.
So those are those linear abrasions just shown a little bit closer up.
Stage 13 from the composite.
And the same, but with a scale.
Stage 14 from the composite.
So now you're seeing the left side of his back and also the back of his left arm. And you can see these areas here of ecchymosis, and these are a lot darker than some of the others that we've seen. One of the things that I did is I looked underneath the skin in these areas because they're so much darker and so much more dense. So I wanted to see if there was injury of the deeper tissues. So these areas are associated with hemorrhage or bleeding into the skeletal muscle, so the deeper tissues. And so that's just indicating more force applied to that area.
And when you did your internal exam, did you examine this area and did that inform your findings?
Yes.
Just a super special thanks. We just hit 81,401 subscribers.
And that's showing those areas a little bit closer up. So you can see that they're much more dense. There's at least 3 distinct areas here. There could be more than 3 impacts, but there's at least 3 separate ones that can be seen.
Say 16 from the composite?
This is just showing the upper back and the back of the neck. We've got a linear abrasion right here on the back of the neck, and these were the ones shown in the earlier pictures.
And states 17 from the composite.
And this is just showing the same area of the back and the back of the arm, but just at a different angle.
So we've discussed and seen evidence of many different injuries. In total, how many blunt impact injuries did you identify?
I can't give you an exact number. Again, you can have multiple impacts in a very close area. So it can be hard to discern each one. They can overlay each other, or they can be so close to each other. But at least, 5 to 6, most likely more than that.
And when you were going through your body chart as well, and I guess we also saw some of it photographically, as you also mentioned impact to the left side of the head.
Yes.
And I believe that was subgaleal.
Subgaleal. So kind of similar to what I was describing on the back. I looked at the underside of the scalp. And so in those areas on the left side of his forehead where there was the edema, when we reflect or we fold the scalp over, there was hemorrhage or bleeding that went through the entire scalp and was deposited on the skull. There was no associated skull fracture and there was no bleeding inside of the skull, but it was all in the scalp and deposited on the outer surface of the skull.
So under the skin, but not under the skull.
Correct.
Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you. Any cross-examination?
Yes.
Oh, please try to impeach her testimony. She seemed to be eminently qualified.
My name is James Owens, and I'm one of the lawyers that represents Sarah Boone here today. And I've got 2 questions. Can we first talk about the toxicology?
Yes.
The alcohol. You said you've done approximately 3,000 autopsies. And of those autopsies, how many years would that have been over that period of time?
12 years.
Okay. So when you first got down here from Tampa, I think you were up in the Northeast, you came down here to Tampa, that's when you started?
Yes.
And you would agree you've interpreted toxicology results in all or most of those cases?
Most, yes.
And you did order the blood alcohol test of the decedent in this case? And you said he was a 0.38?
No, 0.138.
0.138. And you also ordered the vitreous level
Yes.
of alcohol as well? And the result was a 0.213?
Yes.
And you would agree that's about 3 times the legal limit?
Close, yes.
Now, you would agree that at those levels, there are some pharmacologic effects from that in the body?
Yes.
And I know you mentioned some, but you agree that level of alcohol in the body would impair somebody's judgment
For most people, yes.
and their decision-making abilities.
Yes.
And it would release inhibitions,
Yes.
and they would be more apt to take risk that they otherwise would not.
Yes.
And of course, it would impair motor skills and potentially loss of balance.
Yes.
It would also impair coordination
But
Yes.
he accidentally
and eye
fell into the
coordination
suitcase?
as well as fine motor skills.
Yes.
It also impairs memory, alcohol does.
Yes.
So there are lots of effects that ethanol has on the body.
Yes.
Now, you're aware in this case that George Torres, the decedent, stepped into the suitcase under his own power in a game of hide and seek.
That's how it was reported to me. Yes.
Do you have any evidence to dispute that?
No.
I do. She didn't seek, and he didn't really hide.
Can you tell us when Mr. Torres drank the last drink he had prior to getting in the suitcase?
That I can't tell you because, if somebody had been drinking either periodically throughout a time period or continually throughout a time period, that's difficult to say.
So he could have stopped drinking an hour before he got into the suitcase, or 5 minutes before he got into the suitcase, or 4 hours before he got into the suitcase.
Yes.
We just don't know.
Correct.
Do you have any idea at the time of the autopsy whether or not he was in the elimination phase?
So
Metabolism.
he was in the metabolic phase. Yes.
The elimination phase is what I refer to it as. But
Yes.
okay. All right. Now I want to talk about time of death determination. It's fair to say that you did not go to the scene that day that Mr. Torres was found.
No, a medical legal death investigator from our office went to the scene.
So there was an investigator with your agency named Ashley Hammermeister
Yes.
that went to the scene,
Hammermeister.
Yes.
and she would have prepared a report.
Yes.
And you would have reviewed that report.
Yes.
Do you agree that Fire and Rescue assessed Mr. Torres at 1:07 p.m. on that date, February 24th of 2020?
Yes.
Does that sound about right based on your case file?
Yes.
And so this investigator that we mentioned, she did not arrive on scene till 6:27 p.m., so nearly 6 hours after the body was discovered, she arrived.
Yes.
And the body was laying supine, stretched out
Yes.
in front of the suitcase.
Yes.
Now, you examined and assessed the body of Mr. Torres at the time of the autopsy,
Yes.
and you said that the body was ambient temperature.
Yes.
Is that the normal air temperature we're in today?
Whichever environment you're in. Yes.
So the body was not stored in a cooler for 24 hours.
No, the body was stored in the cooler, but in the mornings when we get there, the bodies are brought out of the cooler.
Okay. How long had the body been out of the cooler before it was examined by you? Do you know?
Most likely an hour to an hour and a half.
Now, you said that the lividity was in the back, correct?
There's lividity in the back and also on the left side of the body as well.
And you agree the body is stored at the morgue on its back?
Correct.
Now, were you aware of the last time that Miss Boone, my client, actually saw her boyfriend alive or observed him in the video, in the suitcase by video from her phone?
I think in the report it was around 12:30 or 1 in the morning, somewhere around
Have
there.
you looked at either one of those videos from her phone?
I briefly saw one that the detective showed me.
Do you know if that was the 2-minute video or the 22nd video?
I believe it was the shorter one.
Okay. So would it be fair if I said the time last seen was around 11:30? Would you dispute that or?
No.
Okay. So really, from the time, I guess it was 11:30 that evening with the videos, and then you understood that the body was found around 12 hours later the next day or so. Would you agree that the death occurred sometime within those 2 periods of time?
Yes.
We don't know exactly when that is.
Yeah.
It would be a guess if we tried to speculate about that.
Yes.
Now, considering the 3,000 autopsies, how many cases have you ruled the cause of death as positional or postural asphyxia?
A handful of times. It's not very common.
So about 5 times or less?
Yes.
And we're going to talk about environmental suffocation in a little bit, but let's talk about this positional asphyxia component. What was your ruling in those 5 cases that you ruled that it was positional asphyxia? What was your ruling in terms of your diagnosis?
Positional.
I'm going to object as to relevance.
Good point.
Approach.
That's a good point. Why is it relevant what her findings were in the previous positional asphyxiation cases she's handled? But it's also kind of a vague question. What is your position on your diagnosis of positional asphyxiation? Well, it was positional asphyxiation. I don't know what answer he's looking for. Jillian says it's not a bad cross so far. That kind of goes hand in hand with Lisa. Does he think this is helping? Yeah, it's not a bad cross-examination so far, but I don't think it's helping her case at all. The
objection is sustained.
He's asking the questions.
Doctor, you're
Hoping to
familiar
sow-
with Dr. DeMaio, Vincent DeMaio's textbook of forensic pathology.
Yes.
Would you agree that that's authoritative?
I'm sorry.
Would you agree that's authoritative, a well-accepted book?
Yes.
Environmental suffocation is a lack of oxygen. You would agree?
Yes.
Now, how many of those cases of the 3,000 that you've done where you found environmental suffocation?
Probably 2 to 3.
So very few?
Yes.
In a positional asphyxia case, that's kind of an example, like you get stuck in a hole and as you breathe, you sink deeper into the hole or it tightens.
It can be anything that impairs the actual physical aspect of breathing. So that could be if the neck is flexed very much forward, so that way cutting off the air supply up towards the top of the head. That could be something compressing around the torso, so not being able to take a full breath. So those are examples of
Or another example may be falling out of a tree stand and getting suspended upside down,
yes.
or the majority of the blood gets in the top half of the body.
Yes.
Would you agree in those type situations that the deaths occur fairly quickly, usually within an hour?
They can. It depends again on the situation.
Now, you said Mr. Torres was 5'2" and 103 pounds.
Yes.
Do you know how big the suitcase was that Mr. Torres was in?
I don't have the exact measurements with me.
So if I told you the measurements, you wouldn't know one way or the other what they were?
No, I think they were described to me and I saw the pictures from the scene, and I was able to review crime scene photos to see what the actual suitcase was like.
Okay. Do you know the crown to rump length of Mr. Torres?
No.
Did you do any demonstrative study on the suitcase to determine what kind of spacing he would have inside that enclosure?
No.
And you don't know the position that Mr. Torres or his orientation at the time that he was in the suitcase was?
Again, I favor a fetal position, but again, I didn't observe him in the suitcase.
But you don't know exactly what the positional component was that caused or what led you to believe caused his death.
Correct. I mean, based on his stature and what the suitcase was, he would have had to have flexed at the hips and knees to be able to fit into the suitcase.
So based on what you've said, you would agree you didn't know how much Mr. Torres would have been able to move and stretch his various extremities inside the suitcase, do you?
No.
So you would agree that his repositioning inside the suitcase would have been easier if he didn't have so much alcohol in his bloodstream?
I don't know that I would agree with that.
What?
Excuse me?
I don't know that I would agree with that.
Well, you say his fine motor skills would be impaired by the alcohol.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you meant his ability to just move.
To reposition himself inside this, that would be limited to some degree by the alcohol he consumed.
It could be. I mean, that's not really a fine motor skill.
Okay. Or the use of his hands to unzip the suitcase would
Sure.
be affected by the alcohol that he had consumed.
Sure, that could be.
Okay.
What's that supposed to prove, though?
Now, The environmental suffocation deals with the lack
That would,
of
that would,
oxygen,
Yes.
correct?
never mind.
And due to that insufficient oxygen that we breathe in the air, so you essentially run out of the oxygen in the space.
Yes.
So I guess years ago, how this sometimes would occur was a child would somehow get into an old refrigerator and it would be enclosed. So it was airtight. And eventually you would run out of oxygen.
Yes.
You would agree with that?
Yes.
And I think you said the normal makeup of air has about 20% oxygen.
Yes.
He's losing me completely here. He's bringing up the fine motor skills and how the alcohol would have impaired his ability to use his hands and whatnot. That would sort of seem to support the prosecution's case that she's even more responsible for his death, because if she knew he was intoxicated and he's too intoxicated to get himself out, and she just fucks off and wanders up and goes to sleep accidentally, that makes her more culpable, I think. I don't know.
So we had either a decrease in the oxygen levels or a low concentration of oxygen.
Yes. Yes. And also, keep in mind that while he's in there, every time he's exhaling, he's pushing out carbon dioxide. Okay, so again, whatever oxygen is there is most likely diminished because it is an enclosed space. It doesn't have to be no oxygen, but it's decreased from what we would have in a normal room. But every time that he's exhaling, there's more carbon dioxide that's in that space as well. So that displaces any oxygen that might be there too.
So what volume of air do we inhale and exhale in a normal breath at rest?
Well, it depends. I mean, you can take a deep breath, you can take a shallow breath. It depends. And then there's also the rate at which people breathe. So that's variable.
So if it was average, would you say 500 milliliters on average?
Depends on the person.
Well, would you agree that at rest, you take a normal number of breaths per minute of 12 to 14?
That would be considered the normal range, yes.
So 6 to 7 liters per minute
Yes.
at rest? Do you know the volume of room air contained in that suitcase?
No.
Do you know how porous the fabric of that suitcase was?
No.
Did you run any tests on the suitcase?
No.
Were you aware that the suitcase, the lock on it or the zipper on it was broken? The pull handles were broken?
Yes, I did know that.
Do you agree if there is a portion of the zipper that's open, that air can travel in and out of that space?
Yes.
Do you know what the anticipated exchange of gases would be through that fabric?
No.
Do you know if, the suitcase was out in the rain and it rained, do you know whether or not rain or the liquid would pierce the interior?
Relevance.
I don't know.
So from what I gather, no studies were done on the suitcase.
Not that I'm aware of.
She doesn't do
So we
those.
don't know that zipper being busted, what exchange of air could go in and out.
Correct.
I think you said there are physiological effects once the value or percentage of oxygen is decreased from the norm.
Yes.
You said 8 to 10% you become unconscious,
Yes.
and then a value of less than 8% death occurs.
For most people. Yes.
Excuse me.
For most people.
And the normal oxygen saturation in adults and children is 95 to 100%.
Yes.
So if it decreases, the oxygen decreases less than 10%, someone would lose consciousness and die within less than 30 minutes.
So that's hard to give a time frame on that. Studies that have been done show that the oxygen content is anywhere from 4 to 6. Unconsciousness can occur in less than a minute, death within minutes. But those have been empirical studies.
So, and I know that's kind of, maybe you tell me, is that kind of why you gave the two different diagnoses, the environmental and the positional, is because the environmental may have had an effect or the positional may have had an effect. You're not sure, so you listed them both?
It's not that I'm not sure. I think that both mechanisms were at play at the same time, and that's not unusual in deaths, is there can be multiple factors occurring at the same time.
But you don't know the percentages, 50% for one or 70% for one, 30 for the other. You don't know.
No.
But you would agree in concert, if these two causes, the positional as well as the environmental, if they were acting in concert, that would render a relatively short amount of survival time.
I can't say.
You just don't know.
No.
But she knows he's dead and why he's dead. Not whether the suitcase can be carried by an African or European
We talked
swallow.
about these blunt force injuries, correct?
Yes,
Okay. It would be fair to the jury to say that there were no broken bones.
there were no broken bones.
And it would be fair to say that the blunt force injuries on his body that the jury has seen here today did not contribute to the cause of his death.
Not likely.
And I think you didn't put that anywhere in your report. That it
No.
did not.
I included it in my report. I did not include it on the death certificate.
Actually, it is
As
in the
the
report.
reason
Betty.
or cause, contributing cause of the death.
Correct.
It actually is in the report. We read it. I know.
Judge, can I put up a couple of those exhibits?
Well, he's putting up an exhibit. Lancelot 652 of the $5. Is he trying to go with the he killed himself? I don't know.
I didn't hear about that until later.
When is later? When did you first learn about the potential for baseball?
That might have been around the time that I was sitting for a deposition, but I can't quite
You know when your
remember.
deposition was taken?
I don't have the file folder. I don't know when I was deposed.
I'm going to show you this exhibit. This is, it's number 14. And this deposit exhibit is state's exhibit, I believe, number 13. And this is picture number 14. Do you see the, you said they were circular type injuries?
Yes.
And you've seen a regular baseball bat or a kid's baseball bat,
Yes.
a wooden bat. And if you were to swing that bat and hit somebody's body or hit a suitcase and the blunt force, that would be a linear line across that person.
It could be depending on the position of the body, the position of the suitcase, and the position or how the object came in contact.
What is a linear injury mean?
So linear injury is if you think, linear, it's more like a line.
Now, if you took the barrel of the bat, the very end of the barrel of the bat, and you poked into the suitcase with the barrel of that bat, would those spots there in this exhibit, is that consistent?
That's compatible with that, yes.
Excuse me?
That's compatible.
And then here's a close-up. This is picture number 15. Again, a close-up. Same question. Would that be consistent with poking the suitcase, if he's in the suitcase at the time, thrusting the barrel of that bat, the crown of that bat, would potentially run those type injuries?
Yes, it's compatible with that.
So a lot of you in
Now,
chat
I
are,
want to draw your attention to the cardiovascular system.
never mind.
Do you have your report?
I do.
Okay.
Really quickly, a lot of you in chat are saying, well, is he trying to say this? Is he trying to say that? The fact that we don't really have any idea of what it is he's trying to say, or any idea really of what kind of doubt he's trying to sow with the jury is very, very problematic. He's just throwing words out that don't really come together to form some sort of coherent argument. or coherent questioning that allows us to see what he's getting at.
You described the proximal third of the left anterior descending coronary artery having greater than a 75% narrowing of the lumen due to its centrically placed firm yellow-white fibrolipid atherosclerotic plaque.
Yes.
And is that pretty much verbatim with what you said in the report?
Yes.
Okay. And that terminology is synonymous with a single vessel high-grade atherosclerotic coronary artery disease.
Yes.
And in that location, it's kind of a classic location for what people refer to as the widowmaker,
Yes.
because of the location in that vessel that supplies most of the circulation to the left ventricle.
Yes.
If you had a spasm in that artery, that could nearly totally obstruct the lumen and cause a fatal heart attack, could it not?
It could. It could cause a dysrhythmia, yes.
I'm sorry,
A dysrhythmia or an abnormal beating of the heart.
but that could kill him.
It could.
Also, years of tacos and cheeseburgers
The
killed him.
lumen is the inside space of the tubular structure of
Yes,
that, and so that was blocked over 75%.
it was. But there was no evidence of myocardial scarring. So when the vessels become blocked, you prevent blood from getting to the muscle of the heart. So there was no evidence that there was any scarring. There was no evidence that there was anything that happened acutely. When that happens, we can see changes in the actual muscle of the heart. So there were no changes suggestive of that.
Well, let me ask you something. If
That's good. He was trying to lead her down. Say his artery was more than 75% blocked. Anything could have caused a heart attack. He's like, yeah, but it didn't. he didn't have a myocardial event other than it stopping after he died of suffocation. But yeah, she's saying, yeah, what you're saying is true, but it didn't happen in this case. And now he wants to change the subject.
if he were to get out of the suitcase on his own and he would have passed out or fell asleep on the couch, and she would have woken up the next day about that time and came down, and he was dead on the couch, and you did this autopsy, would it be fair to say that in your ruling on cause of death, that single vessel coronary artery atherosclerosis would be your probable cause of death?
It could be, but any sort of injury overrides natural disease if the injury is significant, right? So you don't have to be a perfectly healthy person to have trauma and die. So it's very common that we see people that have injuries for whatever reason, but also have a lot of natural disease. But we look at it as the injuries override the natural disease, because especially atherosclerotic disease, that's considered long-term, right? So that's been going on for years and years. People walk around with that all the time. So what's different is that we have trauma, and so that overrides natural disease. And sometimes natural disease can contribute, but again, it depends on the individual. It depends on the circumstances.
So absent the positional asphyxia or the environmental asphyxia, and he was dead, and you did the autopsy, it would be fair to say that you would determine this was a natural death from an isolated coronary heart disease, would you not?
It would depend on the circumstances. Again, I can't speculate on this case because I know what I know about
If you
it.
had nothing else, the widowmaker would have caused his death, or you would have to have assumed, having nothing else, that would have caused his death.
I most likely would have given him cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, most likely would have given him cardiovascular disease if he had died somewhere else other than wrapped up in a suitcase for 13 hours after being whacked with a baseball bat and possibly rolled down the stairs and left to suffocate there. Yeah. Other than that, yeah, if that wasn't the case and he was just laying on the couch, perhaps it would have been written off as a heart attack. But yeah, And I like what she said. Well, I can't say that knowing what I know about the case.
Now, this ethanol metabolism that we talked about earlier, and there's a question about you believing he was in the elimination phase, correct?
Yes.
Okay. is it fair to say that George Torres, the decedent, was in the elimination phase since the blood ethanol was below the vitreous value?
Yes.
Given the vitreous value was a 213, is it justified in saying the decedent's blood ethanol level was at least a 0.213 prior to starting the elimination phase?
Yes.
And now you know that the normal elimination rate is, I believe, 0.015% per hour.
Yes.
Is that standard?
It's an estimate.
And so we have a difference of a 0.138 to the 213. So roughly 5 hours of elimination. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
So in other words, you would agree there's a short interval where the vitreous and the blood are identical.
Yes.
And then the blood drops beneath the vitreous value as ethanol is metabolized in the blood.
Yes.
So is it fair to say, given the significant difference in the blood and the vitreous ethanol values, that the true vitreous and blood ethanol level had to be much higher than what is reported in your report at the time that he passed?
At the time that he passed? No, this is reflective of the time that he passed.
Say again?
This is reflective, the 0.139, that's reflective of the time that he passed. There's not metabolism after death.
You don't continue to
alcohol.
metabolize alcohol after you die.
What I'm saying is, he could have been, prior to that time of passing, he could have, his blood alcohol level would have been much higher.
It was at least at the same level as the
At least the
vitreous.
two.
Yes.
At least the 213.
Yes.
It could have been much higher.
It could have been, yes.
Judge, if I can approach this.
You may.
This is defense composite exhibit for identification, J.
Has the state seen it?
Yes.
Emily G, member for 16 months, has 81,000. Congrats. What's the coverage schedule? We'll talk about it
It
later.
was pre-marked as defense J, will be received into evidence without objection as defense 1.
And BB McD with an $8 Aussie super chat says he's trying to argue that her actions didn't unalive him and it was just a coincidence. Yeah, no.
Judge, I published these.
Seems to be one thing he's arguing.
Ma'am, there's 5 photographs, just here from the office. First one is number 5. What is this depict?
So that's the left hand. So you're looking at the outer surface of the hand, the knuckles, and 3 of the fingers.
That bruise there on his top of his left hand?
Yes.
Right, and the same for picture number 4.
So that's the same, just a little bit further away and without a scale.
And then here is picture number 3.
So now you're looking at the thumb and the index finger.
And then it shows some bruising on the hand.
Yes.
And then here's picture number 2.
So what you're seeing here is, from the scene, our investigators put brown bags over the decedent's hands. And we collect evidence at the time of the autopsy. So at the scene, brown bags are put on the hands to preserve any evidence. And so that's why you're seeing this, because this is a picture that we take. We cut the bag open and we take a picture to show exactly what the hands look like.
You agree there's bruising here? On
Yes,
the right
there.
hand, and also up around the knuckle area?
Yes.
The fingers, and also on the section here?
Yes.
And then here's the last picture, number 5, which again is the left hand,
Yes.
showing the bruising on the top of the hand as well as the knuckle area.
Yes.
Thank you, Doctor.
Is that it?
Any redirect exam. You may proceed.
All right, got a little bit of redirect coming from the prosecution, and then we'll hit the super chats and things.
You were asked several questions on cross-examination about the alcohol level in this case. And I believe there was a term, metabolic phase or elimination phase. Could you just explain for us what that is?
Sure. So in the toxicology testing, there's two different levels that I ordered for levels of alcohol. One is they look in the blood to see the level of alcohol. The other is in what's called vitreous fluid or eye fluid. And we look at both areas because that can give us an idea of whether somebody is metabolizing through the alcohol or whether it's still rising. It just gives us an idea sometimes of how close to death they were when, the ingestion of alcohol happened. But basically, the level in the eye fluid trails behind what we see in the blood. There will be a small point in time, as we discussed earlier, that they will be almost the same. But you can just think of it as the blood alcohol goes up, and then a brief period of time later, the alcohol in the eye fluid will start to show. So again, it's just to give us an idea of whether somebody is metabolizing or whether they're still, the level is still rising, or if they're still, intaking alcohol.
So the result in this case was indicative that George Torres's level was coming down.
Yes.
And I think some of the math was a little bit difficult to follow on the fly. But with that rate of dissipation, would it be fair to say that he would have been in that suitcase for approximately 5 hours, because he couldn't be drinking whilst in the suitcase, that we're seeing this rate decrease between these two levels?
Well, you have to be careful how you interpret it, because the numbers that I have from toxicology testing, that's from one point in time. We're collecting those specimens at the time of the autopsy, so that's only one point in time. It's possible, but I can't say for certain. All I can tell you is that at some point in time, his blood alcohol was at least the higher level that we saw in the vitreous fluid. So if, the calculation of the 5 hours, that's an estimate, because again, everyone's a little bit different. But I think it's reasonable to say 5 hours. Yes, that's within reason to say that.
And obviously a pretty obvious point, but we don't continue to metabolize alcohol after death?
Correct.
You were asked about studies or tests being performed on the suitcase in this case.
Correct.
Would the presence of objects in that suitcase also affect the length of time a person may have survived in that suitcase?
I guess if there were a lot of other objects in there, that maybe could, occlude the mouth or nose, or maybe if that means if there's more stuff in the suitcase, there's less room for the person. So I guess.
Another variable that would also be present would be the opening of that zipper, would it not?
Yes.
So if the zipper was further open, potentially more oxygen could be coming into that area. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, there could be more oxygen coming in, but that's always the question is, would it be enough? Because you can still have oxygen there, but it may not be enough. Again, that I talked about before.
And there would be no way to know exactly how far that zipper was potentially forced open.
Correct.
I have no further questions.
Can this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Jill.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Can the parties approach for a moment?
All right, now's a good time to mark off judge calls for sidebar. All right, let's we're a couple of minutes behind. Let's fast forward to live.
Members of the jury, it's 11.
Oh, okay, we're gonna take a break, I guess.
Members of the jury, it's 11:01. We did get a bit of a later start this morning due to those security issues. Do any of y'all need to take a break at this point in time? Raise your hands if you do. All right, court seeing no hands. State, you may call your next witness.
All right, guess they're not. Real quickly here, before we get into the next witness, I want to give a super special welcome to all 1,049 of you that are currently here watching this with me here on Legal Vices channel. That's mine. We've been going 2.5 hours into this. We currently have 804 likes. Let's get us up to 1,000 likes. Excuse me, choking on my own saliva there. 200, that's all we need. 200 more likes. That'll give us up to 1,000 likes. That's pretty dang cool. And we've got our like and subscribe poll. Just to remind you to hit the like and subscribe button. Take our like and subscribe poll. Currently, it's running almost neck and neck. The question were, what is the most important thing on Sarah's mind right now? 21% of you say, what's my next version of the story going to be? 23% of you say, why is everyone so dumb? 25% of you says, hangry, need snacks. And 31% of you say that the most important thing on Sarah's mind right now is let's get this over with so I can go home. And if you have downloaded your bingo card, if you've clicked the link that's pinned in chat on Rumble and YouTube and hit the generate card and you're playing along on bingo with us, here's what you need to do to mark off on your bingo card so far. The free space, obviously, and shh. Judge calls for sidebar. Lawyer calls for sidebar. Vice's boomers something. Wine. Hide and seek. Baseball bat. Dog snores. Dog cam. And F-bomb. Those are the things that we should have marked off on our card so far. All right. I think that's all we've got to do here while we take this little bit of a break. And I guess the court's not going to take a morning break. They're going to go straight on through to the lunch hour. So we have anywhere from an hour to 90 minutes before they take the lunch break. And right back before we jump into chat, BB McD clarifies they didn't unalive him. Figured that. And now that my super chat's working, congrats on 81,000. Well, thank you very much. And we are currently at 81,409. We're 91 away from 81,500. So 91 of you get down and hit that subscribe button. Let's get us up to 81,500 by today. Thank you. And Emily G says, what is the coverage schedule today for you, Jeff? Joined a little late today. All right, just so you know, we'll talk about that very, very, very quickly, then get right back to it. The plan here is we will shut this down today at lunch. We'll end the stream at lunch, and then tomorrow we will start an hour early. We'll start at 8 a.m. Eastern time, which is 1 p.m. UK time. We will start an hour early. We will watch the afternoon of day 2 at 1.25 speed. Hopefully, in some places, we may be able to get up to 1.5 speed. We'll watch it in an advanced speed. We'll skip the breaks and all the sidebars and stuff. And then once we finish the afternoon of day 2, we will begin with day 3. And we'll watch that at an accelerated pace until we catch up to live. And then we'll watch it on through the lunch break. That's the plan for today and tomorrow. So stand by for that. Let's get right back into this, shall we? Who is our next witness? That's the wrong one. I've just boomered it again. Here we go.
Yes.
Oh, great. They want to approach for a moment. A long moment. Good.
The independent back in as quickly as possible.
Oh, there's something to talk about, I guess.
Members of the jury, I have a matter I've got to take up with counsel outside of your presence. I promise it won't take too long. We'll bring you back.
All right. Wait for the jury to go.
Okay, Zelle exhibit is State's Exhibit F for identification. It is the title Stipulation Victim Identification, and it is signed by Mr. Cacciatore, Sarah Boone, and myself, October 2nd of 2024.
Okay. And the other stipulation?
The other is a stipulation of FDLE report, again signed by Dave Cacciatore Jr., Sarah Boone, and James Owens. It is a It's listed as identification, for identification states Exhibit N. It is a two-page FDLE laboratory report generated June 3rd of 2020.
Oh, this is interesting. They're stipulating to a bunch of lab reports and things, so we don't have to bring in people to talk about those. So this is going to significantly curtail the state's case, because they don't need to pull in all these people that are going to testify to these things, because they've all just stipulated to them, which means that both sides of the defendant agree to accept them
State,
as
anything
they
else
are.
to add over and above what Mr. Owens identified?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Boone, good morning. You were previously sworn earlier today. I hold in my hand two stipulations. The first stipulation, pre-marked as State's Exhibit F, reads Stipulation of Victim Identification. Reads as follows. The Assistant State Attorney, Dave Cacciatore Jr., the defendant, Sarah Boone, as well as his lawyer, we have a scrivener's error there, James Sullivan, okay. Sullivan Owens, stipulate that the identity of the deceased in this case is George Torres. Signed the 2nd day of October, 2024. Ma'am, have you had the opportunity to go over this stipulation with your attorney?
Yes,
Do you understand what this stipulation means?
yes,
Are you freely and willingly entering into this stipulation?
I am.
Did anyone force you, threaten you, or coerce you to enter into this stipulation?
No.
All right, the court accepts this stipulation. How do we want to handle the little issue with regard to his lawyer as opposed to her lawyer?
I'm fine with the court making an edit to scratch out his and insert her if that's acceptable with the defense.
Acceptable?
Yes.
Ma'am, is that acceptable to you as well?
It is.
All right, thank you. The court will make that handwritten interlineation, removing his and adding her. State, do you seek, we'll move this into evidence in front of the jury, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you, sir. Moving now to what was pre-marked as State's N. Ma'am, this is a stipulation of FDLE report. It reads, the Assistant State Attorney, Dave Cacciatore Jr., and defendant Sarah Boone, as well as his lawyer, James Sullivan Owens, stipulate to the admissibility into evidence at trial of the FDLE lab report authored by Carolina Benito on June 3, 2020. It bears Mr. Cacciatore's signature, your signature, and the signature of your attorney, Mr. Owens. Have you had the opportunity to review this stipulation with your attorney?
Yes,
Have you had the opportunity to review the two-page FDLE report that will be attached to it?
yes,
Do you understand what this stipulation means?
yes,
Are you entering into this stipulation freely and voluntarily?
yes,
Did anyone force you, threaten you, or coerce you to enter into this stipulation?
no,
All right, the court accepts this stipulation. Any issue with striking through his and adding her state?
No, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
All right, the court will make that interlineation as well. Anything else we need to address, state? I will return these to you for the purposes of moving them into evidence with regard to these two stipulations.
Yes, Your Honor.
So nothing else?
Nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Defense, anything else? All right, thank you very much.
Let's get the jury back.
All juror members have raised their hands.
All right, we
State,
are
you
caught
may
up
proceed
live.
with your evidence and testimony presentation.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, we'd like to move what's been pre-marked for identification as states F and states N into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection.
All right, what was pre-marked as states F will be received without objection as state 14. What's been pre-marked as states N will be received into evidence without objection at state 15.
So what those stipulations were is they agreed that George
Your Honor,
Torres is
we
dead.
Request that they be published.
Thank you.
They agreed that George Torres is dead.
Members of the jury,
They
I'm
agreed
going to
that
read
they
to
could
you some
enter
stipulations along with
lab
an
report.
instruction. When the parties agree that certain facts are true, that is called a stipulation of fact. You must accept stipulated facts as having been proven. However, the significance of these facts, as with all facts, is for you to decide. In this case, the stipulated facts that you must accept as true are as follows. Stipulation of victim identification. The Assistant State Attorney, Dave Cacciatore Jr., and defendant Sarah Boone, as well as her lawyer, James Sullivan Owens, stipulate that the identity of the deceased in this case is George Torres. Stipulation of FDLE report. The Assistant State Attorney, Dave Cacciatore Jr., and defendant Sarah Boone, as well as her lawyer, James Sullivan Owens, stipulate to the admissibility into stipulate into evidence at trial of the FDLE lab report authored by Carolina Benito on June 3, 2020. With that, State, you can call your next witness.
Meredith McCaskill.
All right, so that was the stipulation as the judge explained it. Let's go, Meredith.
Please do swear or affirm the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
Ma'am, good morning. Could you please take a seat and state and spell your name for the record for us?
My name is Meredith McCaskill, and it's spelled MEREDITMCCASKILL.
Thank you. Mr. J, you may inquire.
Thank you. Where do you work, ma'am?
I am employed at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the Orlando Regional Operations Center.
And is that also called FDLE?
Yes, it is.
And what do you do for FDLE?
I am a senior crime laboratory analyst in the biology DNA section.
And what is your educational background? We'll get into training and experience as well, but what's your educational background that allows you to do that job?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences from Clemson University and a Master of Science in Biomedical Forensic Science from the Boston University School of Medicine.
And when did you first start working for FDLE?
I started at FDLE in April of 2011.
Did you have any prior work experience as a forensic examiner of blood or biological or DNA evidence?
No, I did not.
So for the last 13 years, your experience has been with the FDLE?
Yes, that's correct.
And do you have any sort of in-house training and then continuing education that goes on as an employee at FDLE?
Yes. So when you become a crime laboratory analyst, you have to successfully complete a training program. This training program takes about 1.5 to 2 years. It covers all of our policies and procedures and manuals, reading textbooks and scientific articles, and performing a lot of in-house testing and training under the supervision of a qualified analyst. There's also written and oral examinations, and you have to successfully complete every part of that in order to work cases as a crime laboratory analyst. And then every year we have continuing education. So that's education that we need to do in order to stay current with new trends and technologies in the field.
Does the lab itself enjoy any accreditations, and what process, if so, does it go through to get them?
Yes, FDLE is accredited by an organization called ANAB. It's the American National Standards Institute National Accreditation Board. So we've been accredited for, I believe, over 30 years. It's a process where every 4 years they send people to come and inspect our lab, make sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing according to our policies and procedures. And then we're also following national standards that have been set down. That's every 4 years. It's very in-depth. And then we have additional kind of like spot checks every year just to make sure that we are maintaining everything that we are supposed to be doing.
Have you ever given testimony in court about your opinion about serology analysis or DNA analysis?
Yes, I have.
Approximately how many times?
Approximately 35 to 40 times.
Have you ever not been allowed to give opinion testimony in those areas?
No, I have not.
her answers are weirdly canned. I mean, a lot of that was memorized, and she is speaking in a weirdly articulate manner, pronouncing every single letter in the word to the point that it's almost kind of weirdly distracting to me. Yes? No, I don't know. But I don't. This is it's just me. I don't know if it's like turning anybody else off here in the chat, but to me it's just her cadence and her enunciation of the words sort of make it sound like it's canned and unnatural, and it may phase the jury out. I'm kind of worried with her delivery. It's beautiful. I mean, we can understand her very, very clearly, but I don't know if it makes any sense to say it's almost as if we can understand her too clearly.
Can you tell us about the place?
It's kind of an uncanny
particularly with
valley
DNA?
sort
Tell
of
us about
thing,
your
Stepford
workspace
Wives
and what
stuff.
personal protection equipment you may wear when you're doing DNA analysis.
Yes. So in my workspace, I have what I call a clean side, which is where I keep all of my paperwork. And then I have my other side, which is used for actual screening of evidence items. So this is a surface where I can clean it with a detergent. I clean all of the instruments that I'm using. So scissors, markers to take notes, anything like that is cleaned with a detergent, both before I start and after I finish. And it's cleaned and maintained in between every item of evidence. So only one item of evidence is open at a time, and this is to minimize any potential contamination. So DNA from one item getting into DNA from a second item. I also wear what is called personal protective equipment. This includes a lab coat, face mask, gloves, and potentially a hairnet, depending on what type of evidence that I'm working with. And then the gloves are disposable, so they are changed before and after each item of evidence. It's also changed if I have to touch my computer to take notes, I change my gloves. If I have to touch another surface, I change my gloves. So it's a lot of procedures that we use in order to prevent my DNA from getting onto the item of evidence.
When DNA analysis is done, are instruments used to assist you in that process?
Yes, we have an instrument platform that we use that allows us to run the DNA in batches in a efficient manner. So there's multiple instruments that are used across the varying processes.
And do these instruments generate paperwork that humans such as yourself can then go read and interpret?
Yes, it does.
Okay, I do not do this normally, but we have to interrupt this this AI produced testimony here to just point out a super huge thing here. Corey Boatwright has just gifted 50 Legal Vices memberships. Just dumped a 50. Super big foghorn for you, Corey Boatwright. There's no way we can name everybody that just got one of these memberships. Dude, thank you. That is so immensely appreciated. Thank you for sharing that with the chat. And ban the gray in chat. Everybody gets green. Thank you so much for that. That is a huge thing. And that makes you the official Vice Racks of the day. Sorry, Sonny or Chris. You've been relegated to the no longer the Vice Racks of the day. Thank you so much for that. And if you're one of those people, make sure Corey gets a super special thanks from you. And that also triggers some events that we'll get to after her testimony. Thanks. Let's get on with it.
Now, in this particular case, you are not the analyst who examined the items. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you review the information that is generated by the instruments used by the analyst who did this work in coming to your own conclusions?
I was the technical reviewer on this file, so I reviewed all of the documentation and the paperwork and also the original analyst report.
All right. Now, one of the items that is said to have been analyzed was a DNA card. Are you familiar with what that is?
Yes, I am.
And can you tell the jury what that is?
Usually it's referred to as a DNA card or a blood stain card, and that's just a card where somebody can spot blood, usually human blood, on it and dry it down. Then the analyst can take a cutting of that stained area in order to generate a DNA profile.
And is that typically the manner in which a decedent or a dead person's DNA sample is provided to the lab for analysis?
Yes, that's a very common thing that we see in decedents.
And can you explain to the jury how it is an analyst such as yourself would take that blood stain on a portion of the DNA card and develop a DNA profile?
Yes, so it usually is blood stained on the card, so you can identify that stain visually, take a cutting of that stained area, and then place that cutting into a sterile tube, which is then sent through the DNA process. So that's adding chemicals and heat in order to break the cells open and release the DNA into the solution, and then running it through the rest of the procedures where we determine about how much DNA is in the sample, make millions of copies of our specific areas of interest, and then generate a DNA profile that can be used for comparison to any questioned items in the case.
Do you use some sort of commercial kit to develop DNA profiles on known items such as this?
Yes, we do.
Approximately how many locations back in 2020 would have been tested on this DNA card?
In 2020, it was 21 locations.
All right. And in going through this process, is there a process that amplifies the amount of DNA?
Yes, there is.
Can you describe that?
Yes, so we need to amplify or make millions of copies of the specific areas of interest that we're looking for. We don't want to make copies of the entire DNA molecule. We're just wanting to isolate those specific 21 areas and make copies of those specific areas in order to generate the DNA profile that we use in forensic DNA analysis.
And do you know what a short tandem repeat is?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
Short tandem repeat, we also call them STRs. That's just what we're looking for in the forensic DNA analysis. There are short areas of repeating DNA pieces. So for example, at somebody's DNA profile at a specific location, you can have a set of 16 repeats and a set of 17 repeats. And that's just this one little piece of DNA, and it repeats 16 times. And then you have a piece that repeats 17 times. And it's the number of repeats that is different from person to person.
And you said you might be a 16 at one spot and 17. Let's just be clear on what we're talking about. On one particular location, or well, all of them, do you get DNA from mom and dad? Can you explain that?
Yes, so you get DNA from your parents. So it's inherited. You get half of your DNA from your mom and half from your dad. So when I'm talking about the short tandem repeats and the example of a 16 and a 17, that could mean that you got a set of 16 repeats from one parent and a set of 17 repeats from the other parent. So it's just the copies that you get from your parents.
And you might happen to have 16 from each.
Yes, that's also a possibility.
All right, and so the chemicals end up copying about, you said 21 areas in 2020?
Yes, so there's 21, and then we look at several areas that are on the gender marker. So it was 3 areas on the gender markers.
And each of these locations will come up with some sort of number like 16, 17, 4, 4, so on and so forth.
Yes, that's correct.
Were you able, in reviewing the instrumentation data in this case, was the DNA profile that was said to have come from Mr. Torres, was there able to be a full DNA profile at those 21 locations developed?
Yes, a complete profile was obtained for that sample.
Now, can you tell us what a buccal or a buccal swab, sometimes people call it each, which way is the right way?
I usually use the word buccal, but buccal is not incorrect either.
All right, and what is that?
It's just a swab that we can use as a reference sample from a person. So it looks, all of our swabs just kind of look like a long Q-tip with only one end. And then you just take that cotton tip end and rub it on the interior of your mouth to get a good DNA sample. You have a lot of cells on the inside of your mouth and a lot of saliva. So that's a good source to use for a known sample from a person.
And these long Q-tips, I believe, as you described, are they put into a box that is designed in a way so that the Q-tip doesn't touch the edges of the box?
Yes, I've seen it in boxes like that, but I have also seen it where they've been put back into the original paper packet container. So either method is fine.
And did the FDLE in this particular case, in the data that you reviewed, was there buccal swabs represented as being from the defendant, Sarah Boone?
Yes, there was.
And in the process that you've briefly described for the jury already, can you just tell us if it's different in any way to take a part of that cotton swab to develop a DNA profile than a piece of the DNA paper?
No, it's the same process. With the buccal swabs, I'm just taking a small cutting of the cotton area of the swab, placing it in a tube, and then running it through the exact same DNA process.
And was a full profile at the 21 locations able to be developed for the buccal swabs represented as being from Ms. Boone?
Yes, a complete profile was obtained for that sample.
Were there also what we call unknown samples that were examined in this case?
Yes, there were.
And can you describe the difference between a known and an unknown sample for the jury?
Yes, a known sample is a sample from a specific person. So that's like the example of a buccal swab. I know that sample came from that individual, and I can use that as a way to determine that particular person's DNA profile. An unknown sample is just a sample where we don't know whose DNA or if there is any DNA on that sample at all. So those are question items that can be, once a DNA profile is obtained from that item, can be compared to the known profiles obtained from individuals.
And in this case, was there an unknown item labeled as DNA swabs representative coming from Mr. Torres's fingernails?
I believe it was fingernail clippings from Mr. Torres, yes.
All right, and typically, I know you didn't do the work on this particular case, but in reviewing the notes and in your experience, do these DNA samples from fingernail clippings come in as swabs, like a buccal swab?
So sometimes they can come in as swabs, but other times they come in as just fingernail clippings. So taking the clippers and just cutting off the ends of the fingernails. And then I've also seen it where they've been scraped using pointed sticks.
And so if there is a swab that came in represented as being from the fingernails, then that would go through the process of as you previously described for the buccal swabs.
Yes, that's correct.
And if it comes in as fingernails or scrapings, do you all have to make your own swabs?
Yes, that's correct.
And how would you go about doing that?
We have prepackaged swabs in our lab. We can then use some sterile deionized water and drip that onto the end of the cotton tip to make it a little bit moist so that it can pick up any DNA that is left on the item. And then we just swab the surface of the item, allow the swab to dry, and then cut it and place it into a tube for the DNA process. So we're just making our own swabs at that point.
And was there a profile obtained from what was represented as being a DNA sample from Mr. Torres's fingernail clippings?
Yes, there was.
And did it match either of the two known profiles that we've just discussed here this morning?
Yes, it did.
Which one?
Mr. Torres.
Were there any results indicating foreign DNA on this item?
No, there were no DNA results foreign to Mr. Torres obtained from either set of fingernail clippings.
Likewise, was there something examined in this case represented to be swabs or DNA samples from Ms. Boone, the defendant's fingernails?
Yes, those were swabs that were sent represented as being from her fingernails.
And so just like the buccal swabs that come in as a Q-tip, and then you would test that in a similar manner?
Yes, that's correct.
Was a profile able to be developed from what was represented as being swabs from Ms. Boone's fingernails?
Yes, there was.
And did that profile match either of the two known profiles that we've been discussing this morning?
Yes, it did.
And whose was that?
Miss Boone's.
Now, in regards to both of these last items that we've talked about, the fingernail swabs from each Mr. Torres and Miss Boone, is it expected that their profile would be developed from DNA swabs from their fingernails?
Yes, it is. All of those samples were represented as being from those particular individuals, so their DNA is expected to be on those items.
Was there any DNA foreign to Miss Boone on those samples that were represented as coming from her fingernails?
No, there were no DNA results foreign to Miss Boone obtained from either set of fingernail swabs.
Now, with this amplification process that you've described,
So there was no George Torres Jr. DNA under her fingernails. But if you go back and watch the interrogation videos, once they got her permission to take them, she seems like she was trying really hard to clean out underneath her fingernails before they got. I'm just saying, that's what it looked like to me.
Is it PCR?
Yes, it is.
How sensitive is it when, a sample is taken from an unknown area, such as fingernails?
The PCR process is pretty sensitive, and over the years, as the science has evolved and testing has changed, the process has become even more sensitive over the years.
And hypothetically, if two people are living together and are intimate partners, quite frankly, would you expect the intimate partner's DNA to show up on swabbings from their fingernails?
Yes, it's possible that their DNA would show up if they're in close contact with each other.
But in this particular case, after reviewing all of the instrumentation data, there was no DNA foreign to either of their fingernail clippers, both clippings or swabs from their fingernails, both Mr. Torres and Ms. Boone.
Yes, that's correct.
No other questions?
Any cross-examination?
Uh-oh.
Good morning, man.
Good morning.
Once you develop a profile, are you able to take that profile and compare it to other possible DNA on objects or items?
Well, if it's a DNA profile that is obtained from a questioned item, we can compare that to profiles from known individuals.
And in this case, an example of that, if an object from an unknown source, you could take that and compare it to a known profile. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And if you get a match with that comparison, what can you take from that?
Just that is the DNA profiles are the same.
So if it's an object, let's say like a bat, and there's a DNA profile that's obtained from the bat, and it matches a known profile, could you make the conclusion that that person touched or handled that bat from the known profile?
No, I can't. There's nothing in the testing that we do at FDLE that will allow me to determine how any DNA ended up on an object or how long it's been on that object.
Now, you said that in this case, what was sent for DNA comparison?
In this case, there was a blood stain card or a DNA card represented as being from Mr. Torres, buccal swabs represented as being from Miss Boone, fingernail clippings from both hands represented as being from Mr. Torres, and then fingernail swabs from both hands represented as being from Miss Boone.
Those are the only items that were sent to your lab for comparison.
Those were the only items sent to the DNA lab, yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Any redirect examination?
All right.
No redirection can be excused as far as the state is concerned.
Defense?
Yes.
All right, ma'am, you're excused. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
State, you may call your next witness.
All right, before they call their next witness, I again want to give them super special thanks to Corey Boatwright for dropping the 50 Legal Vices memberships. We had a conversation here too. But Burning Sensation says, does she work for Zorg? And David Nelson says, Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Nice catch, guys. All right. Antoinette Kilpatrick says, Judge Kranig did direct Sarah Boone not to keep looking back into the gallery. I was not aware of that. Just said, don't keep looking backwards. All right. Right. So with the 50, we do a very quick thing here with the 50. That got us to level 2. That unlocked level 2, which is a shot of really bad whiskey. Thank you again, Corey, for that. The very bad whiskey we have to take a shot of, unfortunately, is Fireball poison. But rules are rules. Cheers and thanks again, people. Ugh. Ugh. All right. Let's get back to the next witness. And when the next witness is finished, we'll do level 3 because he also unlocked level 3. Oh, that's bad. All right. It's just a thing we do around here, people. You'll figure it out. Let's go. Ooh. Dang. Ugh.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you should give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Ma'am, good morning. If you could take a seat, state your name and spell it for the record, please.
First name is Janella, Junella. Last name is Wadden, UAD as in Delta, AN.
May it please the court?
You may proceed, sir.
Where do you work, ma'am?
I'm currently employed with the Orange County Sheriff's Office here in Orlando, Florida.
And what is Sheriff Mina currently having you do?
I'm currently, my current position is a digital forensic examiner.
And how long have you held that position?
I just hit 6 years.
And can you tell us about, and we're going to break it down, education, training, and experience. Let's just talk about your education. What's your educational background prior to becoming a law enforcement officer? In particular, what is relevant to
So she's going to be the video and phone.
I actually started in crime scene investigations with the Sheriff's Office. So I have a bachelor's in forensic science through the University of Central Florida. Upon transferring over to our digital forensics unit, I became a certified computer forensic examiner through the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists.
And that's IACIS?
ISIS, yes.
Can we call it ISIS?
Yes.
How do you say it?
IASIS.
IASIS. All right. I just want to shorten it for today.
Yes.
Yeah,
All
let's,
right, so
let's just keep
Tell
calling
us
it
about
IASIS,
that program
please.
that you went through with IASIS to become a digital forensics examiner.
Yes, the beginning portion of it is in classroom training. It's normally only hosted in 2 different locations around the world, one being here in Orlando, the other one normally being somewhere over in Europe. They actually just expanded a 3rd location over in Australia. So again, the first 2 weeks are in classroom training, normally with over 300 other students. And then the next 5 to 6 months are all a peer review type training where they give you problem sets on how to, it goes from basic education on computer forensics to how to recover data. Could be pictures, could be videos. You're not sure until you pass one step to move on to the next one to figure out what you're essentially what kind of questions you're going to get.
All right. We'll take a break from the education training experience for 1 second. On February 23rd, 2020, were you called out to a scene?
Yes.
And does that happen from time to time as a digital forensic examiner as opposed to your previous duties like a CSI, which would always go to the scene?
Yes, as a digital forensic examiner, we are required to come out on scenes if requested.
May I approach the witness with E for identification?
You may.
Showing you E for identification, you recognize states E for identification?
Yes.
And how is it that you recognize that?
I recognize the front label or the portion filled out on the envelope with my handwriting, as well as evidence tape sealed, also initialed with my initials.
And the information on it includes like your case number and some of the other information you just answered?
Yes, case number, date of collection, and the item description.
And what is said to be contained inside of that envelope?
An Apple iPhone Model XS with a pink case.
All right, and if I am not incorrect, I believe there's 2 sets of evidence tape on that item?
Yes.
Can you tell us about each set?
The first set, which is the red tape here, initially when I collect or sometimes when we receive items from crime scene investigators, the packaging necessarily doesn't have to be sealed just because the phone might have to be kept charged on prior to us receiving the phone. So in this case, I did collect the item from the residence. I brought it back to our office. And then once I was done with my exam, it later gets sealed, again, with my initials and dates. And if there's a, later on an evidence review or somebody needs to review the item again, if we need to do an additional examination, the package might be reopened and then resealed again, hence the blue tape here at the bottom.
We'll take the ISIS
Other than
joke
the
as a
blue tape,
viral moment.
Is
Mark that off on the
item
bingo
in
card.
The packaging substantially in the same condition when you were done examining what is said to be contained inside.
Yes.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
If you would, could you open up this package and, without showing it to the jury at this point, see if you recognize what's inside of the envelope?
This is going to be the phone. Watch him do like a Bilbo Baggins grasp for the phone. like leap across the table. Try to get at this phone she's been trying to get at.
Yes, there's a phone with a pink case inside.
Do you recognize that as the item that you collected from the scene that you went to on February 23rd, 2020, and then later examined?
Yes. All right.
So, this scene, February 23rd, 2020, where is this scene?
I believe it's 4740, or can I refer to my report for the address or the numerical?
If it would refresh your memory.
Yes.
Go ahead, and then when you're done refreshing your memory, let us know if your memory was refreshed.
What are the chances it's going to be refreshed? They always seem to have their memory refreshed.
Yes.
Oh,
The
Memory refreshed.
yes.
What is your answer?
4748 Franz. Not sure if I'm saying that correct. Court apartment number 3.
Now, I know you work for the sheriff's office in Orange County, but I still need to ask, is this in Orange County, Florida?
Yes.
All right. Now, you collected that item. May I move E for identification and evidence at this time?
Any objections?
No objection?
What was pre-marked as E will be received into evidence without objection, Estate 16.
Did you do anything with that item while you were on scene?
Yes.
What is it that you did with that item while you were on scene?
I was requested to come out. I was informed from the detectives that the user of the device gave consent for us to download her phone. So I responded out, and once I located the phone, I immediately started to extract the data from the phone.
All right. So now let's talk about what tools you used to do that. I assume there's some software involved with this process.
Yes.
Celebrate.
Can you tell us about your familiarity and the training that you had in regards to using that software back in the time of February 2020?
Yes. One of the main tools that we use for data extraction is called Celebratory. I did obtain, again, transitioning to our digital forensics unit, I obtained 2 certificates with Celebratory, which is an operator certificate, knowing how to operate the hardware and the extraction software, as well as a certificate in their physical analyzer software, which is more used for the analysis part. So once we download the phone, we get a digital file, which to us is a lot of data, which humans, we can't read. So their software basically makes it more readable for us humans, which we can then generate a report in different formats for review. So in this case, we used Celebratory. They actually started to develop software for cell phone companies. So if you remember back in the day when you went to go upgrade your phone and you had to go into a brick and mortar store, they actually had the software to help transfer your old data from your old phone and transfer it to your new phone, like your contacts, your pictures, your videos, a lot of the data that you didn't want to lose when upgrading your phone. But they are now a predominantly digital forensics company, and they provide the software that we use to extract data off of digital devices.
And is there any hardware involved to use this software?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes, in this case, and especially at that time, we had 2 options. There was a portable tablet. In this case, you can still use a computer, and they have sister software that mirrors the exact same software that's on the portable tablet. So in this case, I had my call out laptop with the extraction software installed on it. And just like you would to connect your phone to, let's say, your computer to export photos or take photos off of your phone if you want to save them, we're doing essentially the exact same thing in the field where we're connecting it to our computer and we're letting the software pull all that data or the contents off of that phone.
When you were told that you had Miss Boone's password to her phone device, do you do anything to try and make sure that the data cannot be manipulated or destroyed from the outside world?
Yes, it's standard protocol. Like once we receive a phone, hopefully somebody did it before it's handed to us. But again, if we're responding out to the scene or we're the only ones that are interacting with the phone, we for sure try to, if we are given a passcode, we try to confirm the passcode. And then the phone is immediately put into airplane mode, which will disconnect it from any outside network. And we also try to ensure, because not always, once you place your phone into airplane mode, it doesn't always turn off your Bluetooth and or Wi-Fi connections. So we may go in and make sure that those settings are also disabled before we extract the data.
All right, take us through this extraction process. I understand that there are many different levels of information that you can get depending on a lot of things that you'll tell us about. Can you tell us the level of extraction we were able to do on site with this cellular phone device?
Yes, for this specific phone, we were trying to minimally get the user data. Again, the stuff that you guys can see when you're looking through your phone, your calls, your messages, your pictures, your videos. And in this case, that's the level of support that the on-scene software that we're able to use is able to download from the phone, especially with having a password or passcode.
All right, so I think we're all familiar with Windows. I think Mac has its own special iOS operating system as well. Can you tell us about the operating system that was on this particular cellular phone device?
Yes, Apple has its own operating system, iOS if you have an iPhone, and of course, even if you have Android or Apple, you're constantly getting notifications saying it's time to update your phone to the newest software. So in this case, it's an iPhone, so it's running their shortened version of iOS.
Can you also extract data that has been quote unquote deleted from the operating system? And can you?
Now, see, again, I always love these Celebrate testimonies because pay attention to exactly what they can do with your phone. You think everything is deleted. You think they can't access it. You think they can't unlock it. Yeah, they can. It's Celebrate testimony should always scare people. It should always be frightening how much they know and can get from your phone. Sorry for the brief piece out there. I had to get some caffeine here, fading a bit.
You just tell us all about that.
Yes, it is sometimes a possibility. It's not always guaranteed, but we sometimes have more advanced tools that can potentially pull that data from the device. And then later, once we get that download, we can put it into that software and normally will give us indications on whether or not data has been deleted.
And so if a particular photograph or a Word document or some sort of file has been deleted from the operating system, may it still remain on the phone device or computer device?
Yes.
It may still be locatable with your software tools.
That is the hope. Again, not always guaranteed, but again, that's why we're trying to go in there and look for that the data behind the scenes to see if we can recover those artifacts. Yes.
Did you later do another extraction of this phone device back in the office?
Yes.
And tell us if it is different in any way, how your software or hardware was different in doing it at the office.
Yes, in this case, we use, again, a more advanced tool, which is able to capture, the technical term is a full file system. So we're capturing that whole filing cabinet, you would say, of the data stored on the phone with, again, the probability to not only collect possibly deleted data, but also your systems information, application data, like your social media, messaging apps, everything aside from your normal user data, like your calls and messages and pictures and videos.
And what level of capture, and if you answered it in that, I'm sorry, what level of capture were you able to do?
Again, in this case, I was able to do the full file system back at the office. On scene, it's the technical term is an advanced logical or logical extraction, again, which encompasses your generic user data on your phone.
And the level of extraction you did at the office, does that encompass data that is outside of the operating system or in unallocated space?
It can include that data, yes.
Okay. Now, what kind of information can be generated by this computer software tool that you used to make it presentable for a human such as yourself or the members of the jury to review?
Yeah, in the software, it will place the data in data categories. So it's organized. We can, if we just want to search between messages, we can go in the messages category. If we want to look at logs, like maybe data that your phone's recording, like locations, app activity, that's also presented in its own data category. And it also has the ability to put all that data in chronological order in what they refer to as a timeline. So we can also see all that ongoing data in the timeline section. And if we need to, we can either narrow down to a small scope of time, or if it's requested, we can give all the data all in that timeline to whoever wants to review it.
And for instance, if there's an entry on the timeline that says, April 1st, 2016, photograph ABC was taken. Are there separate folders that are generated by the software tool that has all the images, such as that still photograph, generated?
Yes, when we export it or generate like in a PDF version of that report, all that data is categorized in a PDF, but it also exports a copy of that same data, such as images and videos, in separate subfolders. So if I just wanted to go look at the pictures from the phone directly, I could just go into that subfolder and just look at all thousands of images that might be exported from the phone.
Okay. And is there identifying information such as an IMEI that is generated by the software tool? And can you tell us what these things are?
Yes, the IMEI is one identifier that your cell phone has to help authenticate it to your cell phone network. It also is like a serial number unique to your phone. And in this case, our software is able to read and report all those device identifiers from your phone, including an IMEI.
And do you take actual photographs of the cellular phone device, like the exhibit we just put into evidence, to document it before or after you do the extraction?
Yes, just like in crime scene, the cell phone digital evidence is essentially another form of evidence. So we always try to document the current state, condition, whether it's locked, unlocked, and if we, again, in this case, we were provided a passcode. So I normally like to photographically document the phone's identifiers or accounts that may be logged into the phone.
Prior to trial, were you asked to look at two different exhibits to see if they represented a portion of that timeline you described that can be put into the PDF report form, as well as some of the images and videos from this extraction that you performed on the device that's in evidence?
Yes.
May I approach?
You may.
What I'm showing you first is O for identification. Did you have an opportunity to review that this morning to make sure that the portion of the PDF and the images in a separate folder there were part of the extraction that you did on this device that we're talking about?
Yes.
And was that accurate?
Yes.
P for identification, is that another carve out of the PDF timeline as well as videos and photographs from that device?
Yes.
All right, this time the state will move O for identification into evidence and reserve on P.
With regard to states O.
No objection.
All right, what was pre-marked as states O will be received into evidence without objection as state 17.
Permission to publish?
You may.
Let's get this thing published. Come on, man.
Open up the file labeled extraction.
Oh, what are we going to learn about Sarah right here? Is it going to confirm something we've already known or tell us something new? Duncan Idaho with the $5. So just take your SIM card onto an army base and dispose of it in a dumpster. Thanks, Higgins. And take your phone to the range. You can, and you should be good. I wouldn't try that. Not legal advice.
Guess we don't get that monitor.
Thank you, Duncan.
All right, so sorry about your neck. Looking at entry 31079, can we just go column through column and explain what we're looking at?
Yes, the first column normally is just an assigned number, just like a line item number for the report. Because again, this is an excerpt. There could be thousands and thousands of line items when you're looking at the entire timeline. So the far left-hand column is just a line item number, followed by again, the data category for whatever data you're looking at. In this case, there's a couple listed as application usage and then location data.
Let's talk about the column that has dates and times, and can you explain to us what UTC -5 means?
Yes. Another column, again, we're looking this at a timeline, so we want to know dates and times. So we'll include the date and time of the data that was recorded onto the phone. And this report was adjusted for our local Eastern Standard Time here in Orlando, Florida, so UTC -5.
And going up to the top line there, 31075, that indicates that there's a start time for the application com.apple.camera, and then going back to our original one, 31079, that's the end time. Can you tell us what that means?
Yes, so Apple is very good about recording activity on the directly from your device. When you open up a certain application, such as the camera, Apple is making note that you, in this case, it's indicating a start time. So you opened up your camera at 10:21:36 p.m. And then you stopped using it, maybe closed it out or stopped recording at 10:21:38 p.m.
And in this portion of the PDF timeline, there does not appear to have been any videos or photographs captured while the camera was open. Is that accurate?
Based on that excerpt, I don't see a recorded media file.
All right. In the surrounding entries, can we just talk about what I would unfairly probably call spam of locations? What is going on there?
Again, if there's usage, application usage, or you're just in a really good location, or your device is just set to record locations wherever you are, your phone is also recording that data as well. And in some cases, like again, your phone, if you have it set for your camera to record your location when you take a picture, again, like when you reopen that picture, it'll show you, hey, you were located at 2500 West Colonial Drive. That's that data that's being recorded in the background while you're using that application that it might have that permission to record that data.
Can we just go column by column through the first entry here, 16498? What does instant messages mean?
That's referencing text messages.
Second column, outgoing. Does that indicate there's an outgoing communication?
Yeah, so it'll reflect outgoing or incoming depending on the recipient or sender.
The next column, there's a 1. What does that mean?
That just might be like one entry, one message. I don't see the header for the columns. That one I'm not I'm sure of.
All right, and the date and time we've already explained. Let's talk about the from, owner, and then the participants. What does this all mean?
So the from section, again, if we're looking at the first row of data, it's indicative that it's a text message because the sender, it's listing the phone number being used to send that message. And then for iPhone devices specifically, if you're communicating with another Apple device, it may also list the phone number as well as your backup, which is your Apple ID. So if it can't transmit that message through your phone number, it might default to your iCloud account. And in this case, it's listing both.
All right, and if, for instance, the outgoing recipient or the incoming sender of the text message is in the contacts, would it show up with the person's name, such as Wancho?
Yes, our software will display your contact name as how you save it.
And if there's no contact name, it would just show the phone number?
Phone number or, again, Apple, your iCloud account.
Videos, 16499, capture time, what does that indicate?
So that is when the video, in this case, it looks like a video is captured on the device.
Let's specifically talk about entry 16520. Again, we've discussed that's an instant message and it's incoming rather than outgoing. So that means it came to this phone device.
Yes.
And over to the right of the date and time, which would have been 6:07 p.m. 30 seconds on Christmas 2019, it indicates that it's from a contact named Mo. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Mo, did he own
Then
a
the
bar?
contents speak for itself. Going down to
My daughter, wait. Whoa, what did that say? So this is from Mo to Brian Boone and her. Yo, my daughter told me don't want you around any of my nieces and nephews. That's weird. Okay.
going down to 16522, an outgoing instant message at 11:31 p.m. 57 seconds on Christmas 2019. What is the content of that communication?
The content of the message is hide and seek, I shall.
Wow.
Turning down to 17167, it's an instant message that indicates it's outgoing from this device on January 13th, 2020, 5:01 p.m. 41 seconds, and it's from what is paren owner. Does that mean it's from the device?
Yes.
What's the content of that text message?
I'm sorry, what was the line item number?
17167.
And bless you and all of you too, I'll get rid of him.
Oh, boom. And that was 6 weeks before she got
Then the
rid of
next
him.
three are also outgoing messages. What do they indicate
Oh, dear.
as far as content?
Starting with 17168, then I'll be better, followed by 17169, ugh, and 17170, Torres.
Oh, no, that's not good. I'll get rid of him. Ugh.
Turning now
Torres.
to entry
And he's dead 6
31103,
weeks
which is on
later.
page 49 of the 59-page PDF. Again, it looks like what we talked about before, the com.apple.camera application. gets opened up to be used at 11:12 p.m. 40 seconds. Is that what this data reflects?
Yes.
And then at entry 31107, a video that ends up being captured as IMG_1062.MOV begins at 11:12 p.m. 45 seconds on February 23rd, 2020. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then there does not seem to be any intervening closing of the camera application before we get to 31113.
In that portion, I don't see that information.
And then at 11:23 p.m. 03 seconds on February 23rd, 2020, in entry 31113, a second movie is generated by this device labeled IMG_1063.MOV.
Yes.
I'm going to continue publishing on this exhibit.
Well, okay, those text messages were not helpful to her at all. Here we go again.
For everything you've done to me. For everything you've done to me. Fuck you. Fuck you. Stupid. That's my name. Don't wear it on. I can't fucking breathe, babe. Seriously. Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me. Sarah. Sarah. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe. That's on you. Sarah, I can't breathe. It's on you. Sarah. Real or ransom? Might want to give it for it extra. Because I got this. Sarah. Real or ransom? Sarah. I can't breathe, babe. Oh. That's what I feel like when you ching on me. Sarah. Fuck you. Sarah. Yeah. You should probably shut the fuck up.
For the record, that was IMG_1062.MOV, now publishing 1063, same respective file name.
This is the second video is the one where she's flipped it around and moved it.
No other questions of this witness?
Any cross-examination?
Oh, this better be good.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I believe you stated on direct that you were called to the scene and you were asked to do your analysis out there. Is that correct?
At least a download.
Download. What type of phone was this?
An Apple iPhone XS.
And how were you able to get into the phone, for lack of a better word?
I was provided with the phone's passcode.
Okay. With an Apple phone, without being given that passcode, are you able to get in an Apple phone?
Maybe not necessarily unlock the phone, even though that is an option through some of our advanced tools that is supported. But it can have the ability to download the phone even in a locked state and pull 85% of that data.
Is it a much easier process when you have the code?
It's quicker, yes.
And how were you provided that code?
I believe either through Detective Copsel or Connolly at the time, or I may have asked Miss Boone just to reconfirm the passcode.
And did she give you the passcode?
Yes, somebody did, yes.
Now, on the first exhibit that went up, or when you're talking about the communications or the identifying factors of the phone, one of the things that were identified is dates and times. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. Also, you said it would tell you if the source was incoming or outgoing. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And then you said it would it could identify either by phone number or name. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. On the examples that you gave us, who is the identifying name as to the outgoing on this phone?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Who is the identifying name for the outgoing text or calls on this phone?
I think in some of the line items that were shown above, it was just listed as a phone number.
Was there ever a name listed?
A physical name, possibly in other line items, but in this, and again, in those excerpts, it's just by phone number.
Okay. Did you ever see the name Brian Boone?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you see the name Brian Boone?
I believe in one of the iCloud or accounts that was logged into the phone, there was an associated email address.
Okay. Taking that, was it any other place where you would see in a different name as to the outgoing, other than Brian Boone?
Again, there might have been other names listed in other portions of it. But again, in those excerpts, it was just either by phone number or, again, with the Apple iPhone listing, the iCloud account.
All right. Do you have a copy of the exhibit up there?
No, not on me.
Can we get that pulled up, please? Are you able to see that?
And no, this monitor is not working.
Maybe we approach.
Yes. All right. We can take this approaching here as an opportunity to skip ahead a little bit.
Pam, were you able to see that?
Yes.
There's a entry on 12/25/2019. Is that correct?
And are you referencing like the instant message row? Yes. Yes.
All right. Does it, as far as participants, what does that show you? What does it tell you?
So it's listing the owner in reference to we'll say the first phone number, 8684. It's referencing that phone number as well as the Gmail account or iCloud account associated with the phone, and then it's listing a physical name of Brian Boone.
Okay, so it's showing Brian Boone as being the owner of the phone. Is that correct?
For that phone number and or one of the participants in that message conversation.
Did you recall seeing any other name associated with that phone number other than Brian Boone?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
All right, when you did the analysis of this, and you would look for the participants and get that information, match it up with the phone number. Then in certain cases, they will show you the owner name because you said Apple is very detailed in some of their applications. So did you ever see another name associated with this account other than Brian Boone?
There was another iCloud account logged in on the physical phone.
Okay.
But there was no name attached.
There was no name attached.
God bless you.
Now, when you're
What a courteous
identifying these
judge. You
sources
sneeze, you get a
as
bless you.
being either outgoing or incoming sources, and is that basically telling you what device is being used?
No, it's not indicative of a specific device other than we know outgoing. Obviously the source is the phone that we extracted that data from. In incoming messages, it does not let us know if the message was made through a Samsung Galaxy or another iPhone.
Okay. What identifying information do you get at that time?
In regards to receiving a message, in this case, or what's displayed there, it's going to give us the content of the message. It's going to give us the date and time that the message was sent or received. And again, like in your phone, it does depict either through a small notification arrows indicating ingoing or outgoing. So it's just displaying that version in text up there.
Okay. And then from there, it's basically telling you the number that it came from. Is that correct?
Yes, like in reference to that top row, it's saying that message came from that phone number. Again, the top line item, last 4 digits is 8684. And then it's also listing the message participants.
It's not telling you the person who sent the message, is it?
Correct. Just that it's originating from a phone number.
So if 2 people or more people had access
And
to
the
a
phone number came from
you
inside the
wouldn't- From this
house.
information, you wouldn't be able to tell who actually sent the message on any given time. Is that correct?
No, I'm not a fly on the wall and I can't see who's physically typing out messages.
Thank you, ma'am. No further questions.
Any redirect examination?
Other than just your subjective interpretation given the context of conversations.
Yes.
So
And
somebody
photographs
else
or videos
typed those
taken during
messages.
these conversations that could be indicative of who is behind the phone device as well.
Based on sound and visuals, it does help.
Thank you.
Can this witness be released?
As far as the state is concerned, yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
So you don't know who typed in those text messages. Well, here's your options. Sarah Boone, probably. George Torres could have had her phone and sent those messages saying, "Ugh, Torres, I'll get rid of him." Doesn't make a whole lot of sense for George to have sent the message. Her ex-husband could have sent those messages. "I'll get rid of him. Ugh, Torres." Zero reason for him to do that. He doesn't want Sarah back, and he's doing his own thing. And Sarah's then, I think, 8-year-old boy. You know what? Who do you think said the "I will get rid of him" Ugh Torres messages? That should be our next like and subscribe poll. Sarah, Brian, George, or her son. Which one of those four do you think most likely sent it? I get what he's doing, man. He's trying to cast doubt, but nobody's going, oh my gosh, maybe it was George that sent that text message to himself. Nobody's thinking that.
All right, ma'am, you're released. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
State any other witnesses or evidence to call at this time.
Not for the morning presentation.
Okay, all right. Members of our jury, it is 12:21. At this point in time, we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break. I'm going to ask you to report back here at 2 o'clock at 12A at the Orange County Courthouse. I'm going to give you a similar instruction, the same instruction I read to you last week. Jurors, you must not conduct any investigation on your own. This includes reading newspapers.
All right, so this is where we're going to end the court feed today. We've still got a few minutes here, so nobody go anywhere right now. Nobody leave. We've currently got 940 people here, 955 likes. We need 45 more likes to get to 1,000. You guys can do that. That's no problem. We can do that easily. Come on, 45 more likes. And where are we? And we're sitting at 81,411 subscribers. Thank you so much for getting us over the 81,400 mark. 89 to 81.5. And for those of you that were playing bingo, this is how our bingo card ended up today. And we'll put up the same link tomorrow so you can regenerate for tomorrow. Let me get rid of the banner here. I didn't get bingo today. We had judge calls for sidebar, hide and seek, wine, vices, boomers, something. Still no emotion from Sarah. Lawyer calls for sidebar, baseball bat, viral moment, dog snores, dog cam, and F-bomb. We have not had a single what if any in this trial. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And wisely, the defense hasn't attacked the credibility really of any of these witnesses. So no clock sighting either. So all right, that's the bingo card. That's where we ended up today. Right. So what did you guys think about today? There's a couple of interesting things. Let's do this. There's a couple of interesting things today, and I think this the medical examiner, the pathologist that performed the autopsy, that was a great witness. She had some very, very, very interesting things to say, and I was particularly intrigued by the fact she said all of those wounds occurred at around the same time. And then we have, of course, the damning text messages that we just saw, and the video, the full video. Yeah, not looking good. Oh yeah, it could have been the dog that sent the text too. What are you doing, Strawberry? What are you doing? All right, they're like, play with me. Okay, so well, where does that leave us? They stipulated to a few things too, so there's going to be a couple of witnesses that they don't have to call. What? The dog's getting restless. You've been home and you haven't played with me, and it's 1:30 in the morning. Right, people. So that's where we're going to end this today. Now, what I was saying is tomorrow we will start an hour before court. We'll start an hour early. We will start at 8 a.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. UK time. And we will watch the afternoon testimony at an accelerated speed, 1.25, hopefully 1.5. And we'll skip through the breaks, the pauses, and all the sidebars and whatnot, so that we can watch it in sort of a compact and accelerated form. And once we finish with day 2 afternoon, we will start on the live day 3 at an accelerated speed until we catch up. And then we'll watch that through to the lunch hour, and that's how we'll proceed going on here. That's, I guess, all we've got to talk about today. Let's see. See if there's anything here. That's it. All right. So I guess we'll see you all tomorrow, folks. Is anywhere in particular you want me to send you? Let's see where we can send you all. I'll send you somewhere. There's going to be somebody that's going to be covering this throughout the day. Whilst I'm sleeping here in Korea, it is now 1:30 a.m. Time for me to sleep. And this is your last chance, people, by the way, to vote in the like and subscribe poll, to hit the like button and subscribe live. We're getting up to 81,500 now because you guys are so awesome. Let's see. I am going to redirect you somewhere. It's just where. Let's see who is doing what. Where can we send you off to? Who's doing this? Looks like a lot of people shut down for lunch. Right. Well, I will send you to random person. This is the lunch hour, so I'm not sure if you want more Sarah Boone or more somebody else. Looks like we'll send you over to Recovery Addict. That's where we'll send you. Tell them Legal Vices said hi. And Jules, oh, hang on here. For whatever reason, it looks like Jules is not going to be able to call in here before we shut this down. Maybe we can get in touch with her before court starts live tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. All right, everybody, we're going to do. I want to say, just to give a super special shout out to everybody, all mods, especially you guys for doing this, for hanging out, and for being with us. And thank you everybody for the super generous super chats and gifted memberships, especially, that were given today. We did also get, because of Corey Boatwright, to the third tier of rewards, which is a parting shot of absinthe today, just a straight real absinthe. This will lull me to sleep and put me out of it. Thank you so much for the extreme generosity you've shown today. And thank you for just being here in chat and just talking. It's great to have you here. We'll see you all tomorrow. Go on over and say howdy to Recovery Addict. And I'll see you 1 hour early at 8 a.m. Eastern. Be here. We'll see you then. Until then, make sure you take care of yourselves. And whatever you do, enjoy your legal vices, all of them. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye, chat. Bye, people. Love you.